Jack. All right. You got the stuff?
Yeah. All cleaned and oiled.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Let's get it on.
Who are these guys?
It's my theme music. Every good hero should have some.
Hot damn, it's time to get down to the jam. It's time to get down, it's time to get down, it's time to get down to the jam. I said it's time to get down to the knowledge, gonna get on down with the know. On the morning coffee show, on morning coffee with Keith, here on Pop Culture Minefield.
Excuse me, can I get a cup of coffee? Black?
Can't you see we talking?
White?
Good morning, everyone. Oh, man. You know, I gotta say, the kind of the kind of time I've had since the last show we did and everything that's happened, that about sums up, hey, Shinatsky, that about sums up basically what it was like heading right into 1980, coming right out of the end of the 70s, because nobody was expecting how that decade was going to end. Nobody saw that coming. You know, once you hit Star Wars, you are blasting right through the following year, 1978, with Superman, 1979, Star Trek: The Motion Picture. I'm telling you, all the stuff, even outside of that, nobody saw it coming. Nobody knew how that decade was going to end. And so to jump right into the 1980s, and we're going to do the first half of it today, because there is so much.
Right.
Can you remember what your thought was going into 1980? You know,
going into 1980, I was first. That was when I started junior high, so I was a seventh grader. I was, but man, going into 1980, because that was when we still had the Iran hostage crisis going on.
Yes.
We had the going into 1980. This was me at 13, so my first thought going into 1980 was girls, but
yeah.
I
remember 13, 14. It was like, yeah,
right.
That's nice.
Yeah, no, we but that was when I first started really getting into comic books. So that was, and bear in mind, I was also 1980 was when I first started recognizing D&D. It was in 81 that I actually was able to get my first D&D set, but yeah, going into 1980, I was still a fan of Dynamite. I knew.
I remember that magazine.
Right. That was actually where I found out exactly what D&D was all about. And
for those of you that don't know what Dynamite was, it was kind of like if you took highlights and gave it over to like 13, 14, 15-year-olds and let them just make their own magazine. That's Dynamite.
yeah, no, it really was. Dynamite magazine was, it was, I just remember so much of my pop culture influence came from Dynamite. They would have these posters in the back that you could put up, and the only one I ever put up was a Blockbuster poster that let me put my name on the poster next to Robert Redford. So
Wow.
yeah. So
I can remember. I could look. I think Dynamite was that magazine that you could order through your school.
yeah.
And that was really how I understood how popular something was in pop culture, was whether or not we would find, either an issue of Dynamite, or if they had a book that was a novelization, a kid's novelization of whatever Disney film or whatever recent big film came out. I still remember how everything just went from, one moment it's all about Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew mysteries.
Right.
And the next moment, everything exploded with Star Wars.
Right.
And from that point on, it was just, I mean, I also remember pre that time when Super Friends hit. That was a huge hit because that same magazine that offered everything had a Super Friends poster.
Yeah.
And my parents didn't want to buy me one. I felt, oh, geez, no,
Right.
What?
Yeah, because it was the end of August '79 that we start seeing the in Dynamite. We start seeing the preview of, at the time, was Star Wars 2.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was Star Wars 2, but also you started getting a lot of the stuff related to Star Trek: The Motion Picture. And
Yeah.
I had never seen in all my look, for those of you again who only understand Star Trek through certain people who like to talk about it, who in my opinion really don't know a lot of what they're talking about because they've never really done the research. They didn't live through it the first time, and they never bothered reading a lot of the books and material that a lot of the actors and those associated with the original series came out with. Let me just say, the coverage that Star Trek: The Motion Picture got in the ramp up to its release was unlike anything I had ever seen with Star Trek ever before. All kinds of major magazines were like talking about it. They were excited about it. And again, we're talking about 1979 here. We should jump into 1980, but
well, actually, though, yeah, because 79 actually just kind of gets sucked into 80.
Yeah, it does. It does. and really, you have your blockbuster summer releases, and yet it just seemed like for some reason people forget that Star Wars was pre-summer.
Right?
It's May.
Yeah, it was like what, May?
Yeah. And then you get into Superman. And Star Trek were both fall releases. If memory serves me correct. And so it was just unreal. And as you're headed into 1980, a lot of us were thinking Star Wars 2,
right?
Boy, did we not even understand what we were headed for. I mean, nobody could have scripted.
Yeah, this was the first time that a sci-fi movie had a big sequel. Yeah. It was just insane that after Luke Skywalker blew up the Death Star, that anything else could happen in that universe.
Yep.
And then
we were ready for
Star Wars. Yeah, we thought we were ready for that.
That's true. That's true. But I mean, our generation was really raised on television, and and I've been saying this for years. The big thing about sequels for our generation is that we were the generation that was raised to really embrace that in so much as
Mhm.
that we've been raised on TV. We were used to seeing characters on a weekly basis,
Yeah.
brand new stories on a weekly basis.
Mhm.
So I can't think of a generation that was more in tune
Mhm.
with having sequels than our generation, because so much
Yeah.
of what we were into
Mhm.
was initially just television based. When you think
Right,
about a lot
exactly.
of the characters in
Mhm.
movies, and I mean not movies, but when you think about a lot of the characters that
Mhm.
shaped a lot of us, our
Mhm.
initial understanding of how everything works within entertainment came through TV. Those
Yeah.
of us that were used to watching Sesame Street, or used to watching even shows like let me think of one that everybody would have seen.
I Love
Like
Lucy.
Electric Company.
Yeah. The
I love,
Electric
yeah,
Company.
yeah, true. But I mean, for those of
Mhm.
us that were relatively well,
Mhm.
if we go back to when I started Camp Keith this summer,
Mhm.
if you start right at 1970, I mean, a lot of our references are pretty much Sesame Street, uh,
Mhm.
and then you get into Romper Room,
Mhm.
Bozo,
Like
Captain
it's something.
Kangaroo,
Mr. Rogers.
Mr.
You know.
Rogers. And so that's all television based. And
Mhm.
so as time goes on and as we get older, I mean,
Mhm.
Hollywood begins to change. We're coming of age as
Mhm.
entertainment is actually changing. You
True,
know,
and entertainment like in film that is just now starting to catch up to what Lucas did with Star
Mhm.
Wars.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah. And and
and
and and and also the 1970s. Again, I know we're supposed to be talking 1980, but the 1970s was also the decade that introduced us to
mhm.
novels for television. You know, a lot of Herman
Yes,
Wouk stuff
hmm,
and Roots and all of that stuff. And for
right,
me, I mean, watching a lot of PBS,
hmm,
you're also talking I Claudius, which
hmm,
was just
mm, yeah,
between I Claudius and Upstairs Downstairs
hmm,
and all that stuff was just wow.
right. No,
we're,
no
we're
doubt,
the
no doubt.
generation that actually had a daytime quote unquote
Hmm,
television series, a soap series that was
hmm.
actually horror based.
It was actually what based?
Horror based.
Horror based. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Dark Shadows.
Dark Shadows. Yeah.
And it's just so that with us thinking, okay, now you've set all that up, and we head into 1980,
Right.
and we not only got The Empire Strikes Back,
Hmm.
which completely just blew everybody away, but
Right.
what we got that first year in 1980 was
Hmm.
Flash Gordon.
Right. So in 80, we also so also in 80 for me, one of the big fun things was just because we're talking 80 and sci-fi geekdom. This was this was like Tom Baker's sixth season as the Doctor.
Yes.
This was my Doctor at the time.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, and I loved Baker's Doctor because he was my first. And when Davison came along, I liked him, but of course, but in coming into 1980, Tom Baker was the Doctor. And I
Mhm.
did not realize that he was the fourth Doctor.
True. Yes.
At the time. Again, I lived kind of in a cultural desert. So the things that I got were, basically like seeing a city on the horizon. I could see the glow of it, and sometimes I could hear what was going on, and I would see little bits of it. That was when I started collecting. That was when I first became aware of. Around that year was also when I first became aware of the greater Marvel universe through the Handbook of the Marvel Universe.
Oh yes, yes. Look, we're talking about movies, but let me also thank you
Mhm.
for doing that. Let's also include what was going on in comics.
Mhm.
By 1980,
Mhm.
Jeanette Kahn had been running DC now
Mhm.
for about 7 years now, give or take.
Mhm.
And we were, I think, I think we were coming into Jim Shooter taking over Marvel
Mhm.
in the 1980s,
Mhm.
and basically what Jeanette Kahn did for
Mhm.
DC at that time
Mhm.
was really the same thing that Disney has been doing since they first bought Marvel.
Mhm.
To come in and to be a part of a major corporation, entertainment
Mhm.
corporation like Warner Brothers,
Right.
afforded DC the opportunity to be everywhere.
Mhm.
And again, as we said before, as I had stated, Super Friends was a bona fide Saturday morning hit.
Mhm.
Okay, it was a hit on par with how American Idol was when it first came out.
Right.
And as a Star Trek fan, that's saying a lot because it debuted the same day and at the exact same time as Star
Mhm.
Trek the animated series did on the NBC network. And
Right.
Super Friends had done it on ABC, which was still a new network. Also,
Mhm.
ABC was still kind of new,
Right.
and so you had all of this successful stuff coming in. Well, now that put, I think, a lot of pressure on Marvel.
Mhm. It did.
Now,
Well, and bear in mind too, Marvel is also starting to react to things that are happening in television.
mhm,
Because I just ran back across this morning because I was looking at what happened in film and comics and things like that. So 1980 sees, well, 79 originally sees the introduction of She-Hulk.
yes,
And the reason that Marvel created She-Hulk is because the $6 million man, based on the novel Cyborg, introduces the Bionic Woman,
yep,
who is not part of Cyborg canon. So Marvel going, hey, what if they do this with the Hulk, which is airing at this time until 1982? Um, what if the producers decide to create a female version because they did it with the Bionic Man, they did it with $6 million man, you know. So Stan Lee writes She-Hulk, the first episode of She-Hulk, or the first issue of She-Hulk, so that if if CBS introduces a female version of the Hulk, Marvel would have the copyright. Marvel would own the rights
mhm,
to that character.
that's right. And,
And
and, and
then,
Stan
mhm,
Lee wasn't really in charge of Marvel by
mhm,
1980. He had already left Marvel and went out to the West Coast.
mhm,
He had left Marvel to try to grow
mhm,
Marvel's influence in Hollywood because
mhm,
DC had a major advantage and had
mhm,
been long associated, as I had said before in previous episodes, had a long association with Hollywood going back almost to about the 1940s.
mhm,
And while Marvel did have one character that came out in movies back then, their
mhm,
association with Hollywood was next to non-existent. You
mhm,
could find DC comic books in a lot of different movies,
mhm,
and not necessarily adapting, but making little product placement appearances in various films. One of them
mhm,
being Beatles' Help,
mhm,
of which Paul McCartney was playing that big organ that instead of sheet music, it had all those issues of Jimmy Olsen, Superman's pal. You know, and real popcorn geek. Yes, that's a good idea. That's a good. I don't trust people. Sorry, I just don't trust people. So I am staying out of all versions of Twitter and all of that stuff until after I'm able to see Superman. That is a good idea. You know, that's one way of making sure that you don't get anything spoiled.
Right.
But I got to say that going into 1980, I remember thinking, I was one of those people that was really not happy with getting the next Superman film in 1979, because that's technically when we should have got it. Superman 2 should have been released in 1979. And part of the reason why it wasn't was because they had a brand new director, and they were doing lots of let's see, how did they say that when it came time to do a lot of this kind of stuff for Captain America 4? Oh yeah. We're doing a lot of adjustment shots, and we're going back and doing it. Yeah. They're basically making a brand new movie. It's really
right. The era of reshoot.
Yes. If you've seen the Donner cut of Superman 2, which in my opinion is the real version of Superman 2, you realize that yeah, right, real popcorn geek.
Yeah,
you realize that
the
producers and the studio basically screwed Donner over. They did stuff with characters, and they did other things that, you know, like for instance the whole Paris thing. They didn't do that in the Donner version. That was all added for the new studio version, the producer's version of Superman 2. And they had that whole thing in the small town with the small town sheriff once the Phantom Zone criminals arrived. Well, that was only supposed to be a short scene in the Donner version, and they lengthened it out to give the sheriff more time to be comedic and to allow the villains to have more time messing with the Earthlings.
Right.
They added a lot more comedy and lengthened certain things out.
Yeah.
And what I didn't realize until I saw the documentary was that when it came to the use of the character of Lex Luthor, that particular actor decided to not make himself available to the new production. So all of his scenes were filmed originally with Donner. He did not come back for the reshoots.
Right.
So they had to use body doubles and stand-ins and sound-alikes in order to make it seem like he was there.
Yeah.
And yeah, real popcorn geek, you're right. I like the Donner cut of Superman 2, but I can't watch it in conjunction with Superman because certain things. Yeah, well, here's the thing, though. It still makes more sense than the corporate version sequel, Superman 2. They changed a lot of things. The story that Donner had makes way more sense with the original film than the sequel does, and isn't really intent on trying to be a comedy. Superman 2 is a pretty good example of how far apart the producers were from the vision that Richard Donner and Tom Mankiewicz had for the character. You just had two different camps. You had the director and the screenwriter on one side and the producers on the other. And it just became an incredible example of two parties that were just diametrically opposed. And the dumbest mistake the producers and the studio ever did was letting Donner go.
Right.
Because Donner was he was the man, you know? So.
But in 80, we didn't know half of this. We're looking at Superman 2, as a what comes out in
81 is
81.
really is when it
Yeah.
came out. Yeah, yeah.
So
But I mean,
yeah. So this
well,
is me as
they
a
had
14-year-old.
they had reported that Superman 2 was being filmed in conjunction with the first one. I do remember that. And that Donner was trying to do it back to back so he could release the movies
Mhm.
almost simultaneously with one another. I mean, not at the same time, but I mean one,
Mhm.
and then you wait a year for another.
Right.
So you really wouldn't see a Hollywood film successfully be able to deliver like that until Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I remember Ursa was one of my crushes as a 14-year-old, So going, oh
No, I'm laughing. I'm laughing for two reasons. One, because I was also like you. And two, I actually got Sarah Douglas, I actually got a chance to meet her.
Oh yeah?
Oh God, yes.
Yeah.
Oh God, yes. Lovely woman. She told me at the time when I met her, she had just moved back to England after spending years living in the United States.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Lovely woman. I had to tell her, it's like, I'm like a lot of other guys, had a big crush on you, just something about powerful women, just getting it done, And she laughed.
Well,
I mean, of course, I'm not the first person to tell her that, but
yeah, absolutely. Well, the funny thing to me was, and it was just a little character, but I don't know if it was scripted or if Sarah did this on her own. But she kept on taking symbols off of people.
Well, it was badges. She had a thing about
badges.
badges.
I mean, she had a thing about badges and
she definitely needed some stinking badges. And I think,
yeah,
I'm thinking, okay, yeah, you let her take whatever she wants,
right, absolutely. But yeah, she, that to me, that was what made her character stand out from Zod and Non. Is that she had this little thing that she did that made her three-dimensional.
Yes.
So coming in, like start where we start off. Also, 1980 has the U.S. in a recession. My parents are worried about money all the time. We are in an era. This is just before Reagan shows up, and to most of America saves the day. And let me check something here really quick. Crisis, yeah. In 79, we'd also just gotten out of, we just recently had another oil crisis. Because of the Iranian Revolution, Shah of Iran lead, we've got a world in turmoil. So this is where, for someone like me, having this geekdom, this emerging geekdom, is very important. It becomes, and having like Empire Strikes Back as something to look forward to, because suddenly the thing that I thought was done, one and done, the only thing that I had between then was Splinter of the Mind's Eye. And which thankfully no longer canon, but it was a decent, but also
no, it was a good book. No.
Was.
For those of us that grew up at that time, it was the best and easiest way for us to get a new Star Wars adventure, was reading Splinter of the Mind's Eye. I mean, you go to see this movie, and aside from the merchandising, there was really not much else. I mean, the movie comes out, I think Marvel Comics has their adaptation that they decided to split into like 3 or 4 parts. And
of the movie itself. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you had the bubblegum cards that were incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And we hadn't yet gotten toys, but if you were really lucky, you at least got a gift certificate at Christmas that guaranteed that they eventually get you your figures. And then,
but then you also had the Star Wars comics, which were eventually they started in 77, and between 79 and 84, they also have the comic strip in the newspapers. But you had the Marvel comics after, because it started with the original series in 77, and then you had that also was the Empire Strikes Back era, was in that. So this was an era when we were, I think, as kids, we're grasping at anything that was fun and and cool and and stuff. I remember being so obsessed with Battlestar Galactica as a kid that that I had a spiral notebook, and I did this entire fleet with the Galactica, with an version of the Galactica, in profile. And my parents eventually at one point ended up taking me to a child psychologist who, asked me to explain what it was that I had put on there. And I was like, well, this is the Galactica. And I had names for all of the ships and everything. And I remember him stopping me partway through and him calling my parents in, because my obsession with things sci-fi and things like that was troubling to them. Because they did not get it. They didn't have a reference for it. My mom's only healthy idea of a healthy obsession was bands, and so or things like that. She had no concept of science fiction as being something that normal kids would obsess over. So at one point he pulls them in and goes, look, your son is he said, your son has a very creative mind. This is nothing to worry about. And it was and the strange thing was they were almost disappointed because they were like,
wow.
Why? Yeah. Well, the thing is that it was not something that was. You got to remember again, cultural desert, Texas in the 80s. I was supposed to be a football player. I was supposed to.
Oh, so basically, they got the your son is a nerd.
Is a nerd. Nerd. Yes. And the funny thing is that around that time was when I started working out, started actually, and playing football, and not getting it. So being a nerd, trying to be a jock was so weird. I got so much crap, for it. But so this era was like gold to me with with the Empire Strikes Back coming out that year, with the because Boba Fett, I could not have cared one whit less about the characterization of Boba Fett. This dude had the best costume freaking ever.
Well, and we weren't introduced to Boba Fett until 1978 for the holiday special.
Holiday special, yes.
And so, Well, look. Here's a little something that I found out about this decade that we're getting into.
Mhm.
What you have to understand about the sci-fi films collectively of the 1980s,
Mhm.
collectively,
Mhm.
you have films. These are all of the science fiction films of the 1980s. From 1980 to 1989, you have 14 Academy Awards, 11 Saturn Awards, 6 Hugos, 5 BAFTAs, 4 BSFA Awards, and 1 Golden Globe. 4 of these movies were the highest grossing films of their respective years of release. Look,
Mhm.
a lot of people became science fiction fans again.
Mhm.
Science fiction as a genre basically exerted its influence
Mhm.
big time in the 1980s.
Oh, hell yeah.
And it is definitely something that planted the seeds of, of getting us to where we are right now.
Mhm.
And unbeknownst to many of us, there were books being published that would also help to set the stage for things later. You know, the term cyberpunk was going to become big in
Yes.
literature,
Yeah.
and that was something that us normies, or at least us normal-ish people,
Right.
us nerds that were just beginning, I should say,
Right.
we had no idea about. You know, a lot of us were too young to read a lot of these books
Yeah.
initially, but little did we know that this was definitely going to be something that was going to start being a little something in the 90s when it came to Hollywood, but really wouldn't really reach its apex until The Matrix came out.
Yeah.
And just blew it all away. You know, it set the standards and blew it out the door.
Right.
But to get back to 1980, you're right. I mean, I know we've gone on and on about Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, but you got to understand, if all you had was just the first Star Wars film and then the anticipation what comes next, yeah, you have to celebrate The Empire Strikes Back that much.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It just is something that cannot be overstated, and it had a definitive effect on the rest of Hollywood. Remember, science fiction films the previous decade, I don't remember a lot of science fiction films, you know, winning multiple Academy Awards in the 1970s.
No, yeah.
You know,
Right.
you gotta understand something. People started getting serious with science fiction. Not that they haven't before. There were serious science fiction movies done, you know, but it never really got a lot of attention within the industry. You know, you never saw the Academy kind of look at the Omega Man and go, well, that's something that we could give a couple of awards to. You know?
Right. Right. Yeah, no.
I mean, they only. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, and you really didn't see special effects being that that big a thing.
Makeup effects mainly. I mean, what you saw was I think outside of 2001, I think the only other thing that got a lot of attention was Dick Smith's. I think it was Dick Smith's makeup for Planet of the Apes.
Yeah,
and that was it.
Right, and Planet of the Apes was like top tier at the time, you know.
Yeah, well, top tier as far as its response, but as far as money and everything else, no, it wasn't. That's part of the reason why there is never, and again, I can safely say this, there has never been one Apes movie that actually adapted the book.
Right.
Nobody's ever attempted it, even though there's a script by Rod Serling that is ready to go.
Oh.
That actually adapts the book.
Yeah.
But they screwed Rod Serling. at the 11th hour when they were going to make the first movie because they didn't have the technology to make everything else in the film.
Right.
And so rather than not make the movie, they decided to go ahead and make the movie, but kind of go backwards with the setting. Thus, what they originally had planned in many respects was closer to what Lucas accomplished with Star Wars.
Yeah.
But they didn't have the money or technology to make it work. So what they did was they cheaply used all of the stuff that they had an abundance of, which were sets that were made for Westerns and other things. You had horses and everything. And so they used that.
Right.
That's basically it.
Yeah. Well, and bear in mind too, in 1980, I don't know if you ran across this much, but again, where I was from, what what my family background was, we first start getting the first hints of what would come later on in the 80s with a book called Michelle Remembers. And this turns into the Satanic Panic of the 80s.
Yeah.
And so science fiction at the time, and fantasy especially, was considered heresy. Fantasy was considered all manner of heretical. So this was a time when, being a science fiction nerd, at least down in Texas, was a bad thing. My stepdad used to make fun of his coworker, who was a big Star Trek fan. And this was something at the time that, I had to kind of keep on the down low. Like I said, my parents took me to a psychiatrist or psychologist. I was too young to remember, because I had an unhealthy obsession, And
well, you and my other twin brother, Robert Ryder Burnett, of course, I don't think his parents ever took him to a psychiatrist because of his obsession with science fiction. I think he was able to balance it out, though, by reading a lot of books and doing very well in school. But again, what you were doing, none of us knew, because we didn't have social media to be able to, go out into the world, go on the web, and find out that other people were having the same reactions in their lives that you just thought you were the only one going through. That's the great thing about social media and the coming of the internet, is that this was all going on amongst many, 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 many people. Not only across the United States, but around the world. And outside of maybe a letters page, either in your favorite comic or your favorite magazine, for the most part, you just thought it was just you. And so I gotta say, 1980, I think the only other thing about that decade, other than, let's see, the Flash Gordon animated series that actually came out in 79, but it was funded because I think they lost the funding and appealed to the people that made the movie to help give them some money to finish it. And so Filmation were the ones that did it. And it's called The Greatest Adventure of All, which you can now find. The entire movie is on the YouTubes, and you can find that entire animated film, which they divided up into chapters for the Saturday morning debut of Flash Gordon. And that was also a way of preparing everybody for the producers of the film thought it was a nice investment that would help prepare people for the coming of their movie the following year. And which, again, I went to the theater and saw it. I had a good time with it. It wasn't the greatest movie ever, but I had a really good time with that film. And it's since become a cult classic. I will say this though,
Mhm.
given how Lucas and why Lucas came up with Star Wars, it
Mhm.
is kind of ironic that you would have both a Flash Gordon film
Mhm.
and the Empire Strikes Back, a Star Wars film, come out in the same year.
Right. Yeah.
So,
And I got
but,
to meet. Speaking of Flash Gordon, I got to meet Sam Jones a few years ago down in Wichita at a con. He's really he is a real.
he is a nice dude, but he's a presence, you know.
He is, my God, yeah. The man's chin just dominates a room.
Yeah, he was just yeah. I met him about 2 years ago,
Uh-huh.
give or take. Yeah, 2 years
Yeah.
ago. Nice
Yeah.
guy. I mean, I wanted to talk to him about some of the other stuff that he had done outside of.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
wanted to talk to him about first of all, the first time I saw him, which was in the Blake Edwards movie 10,
Mhm.
and also wanted to talk about some of his non-Flash Gordon stuff uh, uh,
Mhm.
with his own television series called The Highwaymen, and
Mhm.
eventually leading into what he ended up doing on the television series Stargate SG-1 when he made his appearance there.
Oh man, I forgot about him and I know he was there, and I was just like, what did he do? Um, but
He's just a really cool dude.
oh
And
yeah.
again, I tell people all the time, you know, Sam Jones is one of those guys that I think
Mhm.
would make a really, really cool alternate universe version of
Mhm.
of uh, of oh now his name just left me.
Mhm.
Welcome to my
Oh,
life.
Right?
wow,
Well,
Nick Fury.
yeah.
He
Nick
make a
Fury.
great alternate universe Nick Fury if they
Yeah.
decide to use him in the MCU.
Mhm.
He would make a fantastic alternate universe Nick Fury.
Yeah.
Just saying. But
So yeah, now 79 also brought something out that as in film, it was originally part of a Disney major effects film, but this is the year Mike Jitlove first released Wizard of Speed and Time.
yes,
And I saw it at a presentation at my school in junior high, I think that year or the
Mhm.
year after. And that whole thing just stuck with me as to what he was able to do, because I recognized the stop motion,
Mhm.
and so yeah, the man in the green robe was was one of my inspirations, unspoken during that time frame. you know
Wow.
yeah, obscure little shit that just sticks with you, sticks hard with you.
Well,
um,
but I remember when that film came out. I mean, that
mhm,
little short film came out, and it was just like, wow, this is actually kind of cool.
mhm,
I also recognized a lot of the stop motion, but
mhm.
it was just like I have never seen anything like this before, and
Right.
I was just wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and I
Ooh.
love that he's still doing this to this day.
Mhm.
And years later, he actually did a full film based around the Wizard of Speed and Time.
Yeah.
That was just great. And so yeah, this coming into 80 and then going later into, like I said, that's when I first started getting into D&D. We
Mhm.
had the Empire Strikes Back, which completely again changed changed movies, because this is the first time we see a major picture ending on a cliffhanger. Han Solo frozen in freaking carbonite. uh you know we
Oh,
see, you know huh
Read by Nature. Good. Yes, yes, I did know about that. Read by Nature. Sam Jones was also a bodyguard for a while after Flash
uh,
Gordon. Yes,
and
yes.
trained David Hasselhoff.
Yeah.
I did not know that. But you know, what was I saying? This, yeah. So you know, we have the line that changed Star Wars forever. No, I am your father.
Yeah, true. Actually, that was the line that changed it. But the line that basically put Harrison Ford on the permanent, just being one of those stars that's an instant panty dropper for every lady out there, was the "I know" to the "I love you."
Oh God, yes. But
not many guys can be that cool to get away with that line.
Right? Not many guys can get away with that. But the one thing that also that to me in that movie cemented Han Solo as a role model for me was when they walk into the dining room on Cloud City and there's Darth Vader. There is no line of dialogue. Han just pulls the blaster out and starts firing. I mean, that's just like, I mean, that's fucking Han Solo 100%. Oh, bad guy, shoot it.
I mean, yeah, it was just instantly, oh,
yeah.
He just reacted.
Yeah, he's
just like, yep.
Yeah, that's where I wanted to be fucking Han Solo. Hell with Luke Skywalker.
Well, you also know, though, to balance that out, he was also, I think, the first one tortured.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, wonder why. I mean, and when you realize the pain in the ass that Han Solo was to Darth Vader.
True.
Because
he probably put in an extra. He probably turned it up to 11 a couple times just for the whole. And this is for making me look like a,
Yeah, this is for fucking up my ship. Because this is the dude that shows up in the equivalent of a tricked out semi. At the end, just when you've got this upstart little fuck in your sights, blows up one of your wingmen, gets the other one to knock you out into space, then shows up with your daughter. He doesn't know that, but still.
Well, and the irony being that it happens again.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing about it. Spoilers, it happens again. This little ship ends up screwing him over again.
Yeah, blowing up the other Death Star.
Well, no. You're talking about the next movie. I'm talking about in the same movie.
Right.
He basically makes their flagship. He basically makes it look like it's being run by utter incompetence by quote unquote disappearing.
Right. Yeah.
Off the radar.
Right, off the radar, eluding an entire flight of TIE fighters.
Yes, but also towards the end of the movie, I mean, the final few moments, Luke sands his hand,
right,
communicating with Daddy, and they're able to fix the hyperdrive just in time,
right,
before they can get a fix on him, and they get outdone again by the same ship.
Exactly. And yeah, the same ship gets away. Han Solo, does more damage to Darth Vader.
Even not around. Even when he's not around, he does a lot of damage.
Fucking ship, yeah. Han Solo, his ship, and his best friend. I mean, it just. Yeah, and you can bet, that Vader was like, and imagine at this point at the end, Vader's going, okay, this idiot's taken care of.
Yeah,
you never have to see him again.
Yeah, that won't happen again. We got him now. And the ship's still eludes you.
Right. Yeah, only to have him show the hell back up, and take down the shield generator with help from some of his friends.
Oh, wow.
I mean, and worse yet, he's dating and then marries Vader's daughter. That's, that dude has got to have a mad on against him. But in this movie, yeah, walks in, draws a gun, and starts shooting at him. Yeah.
I know. I would have just been, first of all, shocked. I don't even think my reaction time would have been just a couple moments slower. Because
Right.
I would have been just like, "What are you doing here?"
Right.
You know.
Yeah, it's like, and that's the thing is when you expect dialogue,
Yeah.
you expect is like, what do you no?
Yeah.
Solo just
Well-
completely cuts too.
Well, let's get to the rest. Let's finish out 1980. So for 1980, we had Altered States by Ken Russell. That movie, body horror. I gotta tell you,
Oh,
if
geez.
you want something that'll mess you up on a late night without using drugs, that movie will do it. That's the movie that made me very. Deprivation takes for me have always been associated with Altered States. So that's just my whole thing. And then, of course, Battle Beyond the Stars, which
that came
really
out.
was, and you basically make a kind of a Star Wars-ish version of the Magnificent Seven. And then on top of all of that, you have the nads to go ahead and have one of the actors from that movie be one of your characters in the film. And it's just like, okay, yeah, Robert Bowen, along with George Papard and Richard Thomas, and wow. And then you have the Final Countdown, which to me is that's a classic, man. That film is just an all out classic film. Kirk Douglas, Martin Sheen, Catherine Ross.
Well, and Final Countdown was one of the first things too that introduced to me the concept of ethics in time travel. Ethics in time travel. Why not go back and change the past?
Well, I mean, plus, if you,
but they
if
didn't change anything. And that's the thing that I love about that movie. It's real serious time travel, because you see, they couldn't change anything, even if they wanted. All that they do in the movie has already been done. Just they didn't know about it.
Right.
And that is what you get all that when you see at the end the guy that is left behind and says, yes, I am the guy who is the owner of the company that built the Nimitz. That's why I know everything about the Nimitz.
Right.
And again, if you're familiar with the film, you also understand where Kevin Feige got the idea of what to do with Captain America in Endgame. That's where that idea comes from. He took a lot of ideas from various films. Star Trek 6. Come on, the credit sequence with the original Avengers. Yeah, that's straight out of Star Trek 6. You also have the film Galaxina. I remember that got that got advertised left, right. I mean, that was everywhere. Hangar 18, Darren McGavin, again, Robert Vaughn, Gary Collins. Let's see, Saturn 3, Farrah Fawcett, Harvey Keitel, Kirk Douglas. This really was the main romantic style film. Okay, because I gotta say this. The movie Somewhere in Time is one of those movies. Every Valentine's Day, you could just watch it, and a different mode of time travel than what you saw in the Final Countdown. But it still made sense. It's very romantic. Again, Christopher Plummer, the amazing Jane Seymour and Christopher Reeve, in really, I think one of his post Superman roles.
Yeah.
And of course, Without Warning, Jack Palance and Martin Landau, and that pretty much that's the '80s for you right there. You know,
and 1980.
A lot of the 1980.
Yeah.
1981, we had Escape from New York, Kurt Russell, Lee Van Cleef, Ernest Borgnine, Galaxy of Terror, Edward Albert, Aaron Moran, Ray Walston. This is a film that doesn't get talked about too much, but it should be. Andy Kaufman, Bernadette Peters, Randy Quaid with Heartbeats.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have...
well, 81 also, you have Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes. But you also have the film Heavy Metal.
Yes.
Again.
Oh.
That movie.
Mm-hmm.
That movie just...
God, yes.
Oh, wow.
That movie never seems to get old. You know,
It doesn't.
somebody's
trying to do a live action version of it. Well, it looks pretty good for what little they've made, you know. But Roger Bumpus, Jackie Burroughs, John Candy, Eugene Levy, a lot of people that were basically, you know, seemingly in just all sorts of roles, and a killer soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
Just a killer soundtrack. I think the only soundtrack to even match popularity and success of what they had with heavy metal amongst fans has to be The Crow. And that's it. I mean, there are other soundtracks for other movies, but wow.
Well, yeah, no, I mean,
wow.
Yeah, heavy metal. I wasn't able to see it when it first came out because 14 R-rated movie.
Yeah,
you know, I'm just like, but when I did finally see it, oh my God, it was life changing. Another one that came out this year. Another one of the ones I was able to see because, you know, my parents thought it was hilarious. Two of them actually that year, Stripes and Cannonball Run.
Yes.
Yeah, Bill Murray. And Cannonball Run was where I really became a fan of Dom DeLuise. So.
Well, I just wanted to see, I wanted to see, you know, what you could do in taking the basic premise of what I had already seen in a movie like The Gumball Rally and do it again, basically, with Burt Reynolds.
Yeah, and we'll see, and that's why my Ronnie took us to see it, because Burt Reynolds after Smokey and the Bandit.
Yes.
But then also that year, Time Bandits. I mean, oh man.
Yeah.
That was a fun movie, and the one that the line that sticks out to me, of course, is "Don't touch it, it's concentrated evil." And tell me about
and they do it anyway. Yeah, they do it anyway.
Yes.
And you also had
go
ahead.
Tell me about microwave ovens. Just the bad guy. He was like, I'm preparing for a trivia contest.
You also had The Incredible Shrinking Woman, directed by Joel Schumacher, starring Lily Tomlin, Charles Grodin, Ned Beatty, Henry Gibson, and John Glover. Let's see. You also had a movie called Looker from Michael Crichton, Albert Finney, James Coburn, Susan Day. Fresh.
Yeah. Looker. Damn, that was
Yeah, that was a really good movie.
We have a new we have Nighthawks coming out that year with Sylvester Stallone and Billy D. Williams and Lindsay Wagner.
Yes.
But also,
You also have Mad Max 2.
Mad Max 2, which is where we actually get the whole. To me, that was actually the one that started, the Mad Max. The Road Warrior.
Well, for many of us, that was our first one because we hadn't seen the original first film yet.
Exactly.
I mean, it had been released, but a lot of it wasn't on our radar.
Exactly.
So,
It was.
I like all three of the films. I like the original Mad Max, and I like Mad Max 2. Let's see, and then you have let's see, Outland by Peter Hyams.
Yes,
great director. I tell people all the time, Peter Hyams is one of those guys that he should be more well known for what he was able to accomplish in the 80s than a lot of other people. Okay, Sean Connery, Peter Boyle, and Frances Sternhagen, who I think that performance got her nominated for a Best Supporting Actress for her performance in Outland, which is really just a science fiction version of High Noon. And that isn't to really downplay the movie or anything. It's actually a very, very, very well film. But
and Sean Connery did a bang up job at that one.
Oh God, yes.
But we also have that year. We have Excalibur, which is a big one for fantasy fans. But
Excalibur is just one of those movies that just. I mean, look, whoa. Let's take some time out to really talk about Excalibur because it's one of those films that if you are not familiar with it, pretty much just think of every British actor. This was the film. Okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the Harry Potter movies for a lot of people, where you're introduced to a lot of British actors in one film series. Excalibur was that movie for a lot of us. If you don't remember something like, say, I Claudius. But
right.
For many people, it was our first introduction to Patrick Stewart.
And Liam Neeson.
And Liam Neeson. And pretty much everybody in that film. Seriously.
Yeah.
I mean,
Helen Mirren.
That entire Helen Mirren, who she and Liam Neeson had been involved. They had been a couple. Nicole Williamson, who I think got nominated for an Academy Award for his performance as
Merlin.
Man, it's just this entire cast, and this is one of my favorite versions of this story.
Right?
It is just a beautiful looking film. And I think the director of this film, Hugh Hudson, would go on to do Greystoke.
Yeah. Well, Nicole Williamson, and Helen Mirren got a nod for Best Supporting Actress in that one too.
Yes.
For the Saturday
Awards. For those of you who really like the movie Ready Player One, then you should be very, very familiar with the movie Excalibur. So, and I think they're getting ready to come out with a documentary about the making of the film. So,
and
also,
this because I remember Nicole Williamson, just moments from that movie when he's describing Britain, the dragon, and it just seems to falter for a second, and then lightning strikes. Like, oh yes, lightning, yes, his breath like lightning. Just how batty the character could come across and still have that gravitas. I mean, it's just beautiful part of that.
The movie is just an out and out classic is really what it is. And the film, every time I watch it, it is just one of those films that if you know someone that has never seen it before, you owe it to yourself to really just show it to them and to probably sit down and watch it again yourself, But it's just one of those films that you just can't get enough of. And with that cast, is, to me, it is, I think the best way to describe this film is, in my opinion, it is the best fantasy film released prior to The Lord of the Rings. Okay, I know that there are other people that have other films that they like, but I'm telling you, for me, myself, this is it.
What, you're not taking in The Sword and the Sorcerer or any of the
No. I was that big of a fan of a lot of those films, you know. And I loved Excalibur.
Oh yeah, no, Excalibur was a tremendous movie.
Because look, I loved Nigel Terry's performance, because you have to understand, being a man of a particular age, he had to not only act like a preteen, a teenager, he had to go from being a teenager to an old man in one movie. And he did it, you know. I think director John Boorman pulled everything he could out of this cast and got it.
Yeah, he did.
Gabriel Byrne, Nicholas Clay. I mean, Clive Swift, Ciarán Hinds. Again, the aforementioned Patrick Stewart again. I mean, there are performances and performers here. A lot of these names wouldn't really be what they were until years later, you know. And to me, when I think of The Lady of the Lake, this is the version that I think of. You know, when I think of Excalibur, this is the version that I think of. Ciarán Hinds. You have to remember, Ciarán Hinds, before he was in Rome, the HBO series, before he was in Zack Snyder's Justice League. This is the film, you know. I think this is one of his first movies. And again, this cast just can't be beat. This cast just can't be beat. And if you are a fan of reading the Legends of King Arthur, to me, this is one of the top versions.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, this is the seminal fantasy film, really, for a lot of us. This is the one that started, you know, what it could be.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's really what really was accomplished with Lord of the Rings. I think was made possible due to the success of this movie.
Yeah,
it is a beautiful fantasy epic, is what it is. And again, no disrespect to any other fantasy films made. Especially, you know, I know there are a few people out there that like the big dragon movie that they came out with. I was never impressed with that film. I'm sorry. It was not one of my favorites. But this movie, heck yes. This is it, in my opinion. This is the beginning of it. And you really wouldn't see anything on this scale and be this good until The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
by Peter Jackson. That's just my opinion. I know it's controversial, but it's my opinion. So
right. Well, we get another.
No, it's Gary.
We get another movie that year too that I think helps out a lot. But first, let's say hi to Gary.
I'm here being controversial.
Good morning. Yeah, no, you're not. maybe around the ladies' table it might be controversial, but in this group, no, that's not controversial. I'll be controversial that John Borman's film Excalibur is the only Arthurian film that's worth a shit, and it's told in an anachronistic way because they're wearing 12th to 15th century armor throughout the movie, which this is supposed to be between 500 and 1000 AD. It's like, I don't think so. Hilts, stirrups on horses. Come on, but he did it as a fantasy film. Done it like a fantasy. But he did honor to it because he told the Arthurian legend the way it was told, and so I love it for that. But yeah, it's all
so Gary. So Gary, you are basically enacting a conversation that I remember from 1989 about Excalibur in amongst a bunch of SCA authenticity nuts.
I was in SCA. I joined SCA because of my passion for history, and especially the medieval period. The Middle Ages are just fascinating. And I just when I watched Excalibur as a kid, I'm watching this movie and I'm loving it. But I'm with my dad, and I'm like, this armor is all wrong. My dad just chuckles. He loved the movie too, but my dad was. I got my love for history from him because he was a professor of history. What about the '79 classic Spaceman in King Arthur's Court? Well, how about the Black Cauldron? Which is also an Arthurian story. No, this film, it got what he managed to do was get a lot of actual lore in the film. The whole Uther Pendragon story and using magic to get what he wanted, but because of what he did, he had committed a great sin, and so therefore he could not hold Excalibur any longer. He couldn't wield it. And I love that he did that. And that, of course, is Gabriel Byrne. I will tell you a funny story because I like to watch a lot of British television, including their talk shows. And Graham Norton had Liam on with Helen Mirren, and he let slip, you two used to date. And Liam goes, oh, yeah, and she's like, oh, we lived together, my dear, for years. We didn't date. We lived together. And then Liam jumps up with the story. He says, I was there with Carrie and my best mate, and he says, we're looking around. We haven't shot our first scene yet, and we're just fresh on the set. And one of the ADs says, you want to meet Helen? And they're like, oh, hell yeah, mate. Yeah. And so a few minutes later, Helen starts walking towards him in that fucking gown that she wore in the movie. And Liam said, he says, all you could hear was Liam and I going, fuck. She loved that story. She starts laughing when he tells that story because that's all that came out of their mouth when they saw her the first time.
Yeah.
Oh, I despise that film too, Martin. I don't like
First
that
Night.
movie.
Yeah.
Garbage. But it's got Connery in it. Connery's been in some
dare
shit.
King Arthur getting upset because his best friend fucked off his wife? My God.
But we also that year we also have to deal with that. Speaking of history, I mean, there is the entirely accurate, and completely sane History of the World Part 1 that comes out that year.
Oh, good movie. all you youngsters out there need to sit down and watch that. I mean, if your parents never introduced you to Mel Brooks, first of all, you got to watch Mel Brooks. Anybody watching this show, if you're not familiar with the humor of Mel Brooks,
I think that's where a lot of my sense of humor first started, was from watching Mel Brooks.
Mhm.
That and Jack Benny. But I still,
yeah.
you know, he takes a lot of credit for things like Get Smart, and I'm like, no. No, he worked on Get Smart, but a majority of the comedy on Get Smart was from Buck Henry.
Mhm.
What he was the guy who helped collect the stories, collect it into a story. Buck Henry wrote a lot of the comedy for that. But it's not saying that Mel Brooks wasn't funny, because Mel Brooks is a funny dude. I mean, you watch him on Carson, and he just fucking slays. I mean, have you ever watched him on Johnny Carson, Keith, Martin,
No.
Oh, yeah.
Ben? Have you ever seen him on
Oh,
Carson?
jeez.
Benny
Back in
on
the
Carson? No, I don't.
No, not Benny. Mel
Jack-
Brooks.
Mel Brooks.
Brooks.
No, I didn't get a chance to see a lot of Carson. You know, in the 80s.
Highly
and
recommend going to YouTube and
Mhm.
looking up Mel Brooks, Johnny Carson, and you'll be treated some great interviews. And I mean, he's not like Rodney Dangerfield gonna break Johnny Carson. Like Dangerfield would just fucking break Carson. But he would get on there and he would tell some of the funniest stories and you know, anecdotal to jokes and stuff. And I love that. But Mel Brooks, I mean, I'll tell you what, he does have an inability to die. That fucking guy's old. We
Yeah,
still
he's gonna
got
be
him,
what,
man.
100 this year. Yeah.
I mean, I remember when I just forgot his name. Oh my God, George Burns
Mhm.
was to celebrate his 100th birthday, and like a day later he died. I'm like, holy crap, you know, these comedians, man, they smoke cigars, drink booze, and they live forever.
Mhm.
And that's why
As
I
long
do
as you're
that.
not, as long as you're not trying to celebrate that 100th birthday too soon, because that not only happened to Burns, it happened to Betty White.
Betty
like,
White
you gotta
died
stop that.
right before her
Yeah,
100th birthday.
yeah.
Right before
You
it,
gotta
yeah.
stop. Just
But
let 'em
Burns
get
made
that
it to
birthday.
100. Burns made it to 100 and then died. And
Mhm.
whereas Betty died the day before.
Man, almost.
Yeah,
Well,
and you know, it's really funny. She is literally older than sliced bread.
Yeah.
I remember making that joke while she was still alive. I'm like, yeah, she's a year older than sliced bread.
Mhm.
We didn't have sliced bread until the next year.
I think almost everybody currently on this show is older than the internet.
Oh, Dick Van Dyke. Yeah. I mean, that guy's still
Yeah,
kicking.
yeah.
I don't know what's up with
Yeah.
that guy. And he did his own dancing on that desk. I was like, how did he not break a hip making that movie? I don't know. That Mary Poppins sequel. That really wasn't very good, but the music wasn't anywhere near as good as the first film. You don't hear
Yeah.
people walking around singing those songs from that movie.
Yeah.
People are like, yeah, it's just as good. I'm like, we'll test that in 5 years. See if people are singing that song still. People are so full of shit. You get these shills out there that just drive me up a wall. Look, it's just as good. You know, back in high school, you know, we were those nerds that would like beat up other nerds, you know,
Yeah.
and it's like, because like, you know, we were fighters. Jim Woodward, Mike Beatty, all of us, David Gray, all of us were brawlers. But we were fucking nerds through and through. But we would get that one fucking nerd that would just say something stupid in front of us. And we'd wait for that perfect moment when nobody was looking and knock the shit out of them. Shut the fuck up. You don't know what you're talking about. One of them was my late friend Mike Anderson. I beat the shit out of him so many times. Jim did too. In fact, Jim would get paid a quarter to knock the shit out of him. Like David Gray, Bennett Sumner. These are all my friends that are still alive. They would like go, hey, I got a quarter. You want a quarter? All right, hit him.
Wow.
But he was like a little brother. You did that to your little brother, you know?
True.
And he stuck with us. And I was friends with that guy until the day he died. And all my friends who died from complications from diabetes.
Yeah.
Diabetes. But anyway, I popped in just to say hi to you guys and to remind you, I've seen Superman, and I'm going to be talking about it tomorrow morning. We're going to do our first TGIF tomorrow morning.
Cool. I wish I could see it earlier so that I can actually get in on it, but I'm going to be seeing
I'll
it
try
a
to
little
see it
later.
today.
I think that it's a fun film. I absolutely enjoyed it. I like the kid. He's good. I'm still
Told you
upset
so.
we lost Cavill. I'm still sad and upset that we lost Cavill, but the fact is, this kid's a good kid and he loves Superman. And he really pushed for a lot of the stuff and tried to get away from too much of the suit looking like it was a costume from a science fiction film. Because it looks like a Star Trek uniform, the collar.
Yeah, sometimes it does.
It does, and but I still enjoyed it. I fucking love crypto. I fucking love crypto. I fucking love crypto. That's all I can say
That's
about
what I
that
said.
fucking dog.
I am
cannot
so
get tired of that
glad
fucking dog.
you say that, Gary.
I was
'cause
terrified because I have no faith in James Gunn. I really don't. And I think that the weakest part of this film is James Gunn's writing. It's the weakest part of this film. And he threw something in that irked a lot of people. I mean, like, what the fuck are you doing? You don't fuck with the mythology. But then I realized something as it's happening that, oh, this is a setup. That's a setup for a sequel because it has to be addressed. It doesn't get addressed in the movie, and it has to be addressed. So we will be doing a show tomorrow morning where I'm going to be talking about the movie, and I'm hoping any of my friends.
James Gunn was basically writing in job security.
Let's see how this thing does. Let's see how this thing does on this opening weekend, because I got to tell you, man, there's a lot riding on this, and I'm telling you, Safran and Gunn are gone if this film doesn't bring home some box office.
Yeah. Well,
because Warner's at this point where they would like to just sell some of the shit off.
Yeah, I think personally, we will see how quickly they're gone after Fantastic Four comes out. Because I'm telling you right now, if Fantastic Four stiffs, if you're Bob Iger, you're going to have to make some changes. That's it. I mean, you're going to have to make some changes. You cannot run Disney and have Pixar and Marvel fail you at the box office. And again, these are failures. These are bombs. Don't get caught up in all this stuff about, oh, it was actually, no, it wasn't. If Fantastic Four falls, that's 3 in a row.
Yeah, I got to tell you, some of the things that we've all heard, they're in trouble.
Yeah, they're in trouble.
I think they're already in trouble, and it's like, it's sort of like, hey, we've got some shit in this. Maybe we can pack some things around the shit to make the shit look less noticeable. It's like we'll shine
stuff work that way.
Yeah, we're going to shine it up over here. You won't notice the turd over there. They're looking at the turd. They're looking at the turd. Yeah, I'm telling you, this. I predict failure for Fantastic Four. I think Superman's going. I believe that it's that much fun. That word of mouth will get it a good solid few weeks of box office.
Yeah, that's all
it is fun.
And
I mean, it's not the best Superman film.
What I'm hearing is even the Mandalorian can't save Fantastic Four.
That Mando, I predict that Mando film's going to tank. Why? Season 3 of The Mandalorian. All the fans that love The Mandalorian walked away.
Yep.
Well, season 3 of The Mandalorian stopped being about The Mandalorian and started being about, about.
Well, that's when Kathleen Kennedy took over. Yeah, she took over, kicked Favreau over to film other stuff while that show was being made. And they made sure to punish Favreau for daring to make the first 2 seasons good. And so he was punished by them slapping his name on every episode, even though he had little to nothing to do with anything they were working on. And they destroyed the series.
Yeah, because this was originally, I mean, that was originally his, his child, his thing. And
yeah, he was going to go into another place with, I forgot what they were called, Keith. It was going to be these, space marshals.
Yeah,
that were going to become
Rangers of the New Republic.
That's it. Rangers of the New Republic. Didn't get to happen. The reason that didn't happen, because he got kicked to the curb on that. He got forced out of the show. His own fucking show.
Yeah.
And I sat there and I said it to Keith when I was watching the episode, I said, there's no fucking way that Jon Favreau was involved in this. It doesn't act like a Favreau episode. I know how he works.
It is. They have kept him so busy that he's not been able to contribute with another idea. I mean, anybody else notice the fact that now, for the most part, everything that he was successfully connected to when he did The Mandalorian, he was also doing The Orville, and The Orville looks like it's gone. So they have managed to punish him going both directions, because I think if he were free to at least avail himself, to make himself available for The Orville, I think we get at least one more season. But it looks like now that's gone.
Yeah, it's all gone. Anything that Disney had purchased, bought, is gone that had him involved with it. They were saying he's working on Boba Fett. Well, that's not true either. Because the book of Boba Fett, we all know that Tamura didn't want to say a lot of the dialogue. He says, this is stupid.
Yep.
Tamura was speaking up in interviews saying, yeah, they've got me saying lines that don't sound like me. So he's trying to push him off on the girl. What's her name? From Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Fennec Shan's character.
Fennec Shan.
Fennec Shan's character. And finally he put a call into Favreau, and Favreau quote unquote says, say the lines the way they were written. And I immediately knew with that statement that Favreau was out.
Yeah.
That Favreau wasn't involved with any of it. He had no control. He had no say. And I'm like, this is Kathleen Kennedy and her writers, Star Wars writers group, doing damage on purpose, destroying, because they've been slowly over the years trying to destroy Star Wars, Lucas's creations. And now that Favreau dared to be like Lucas, they did the same to him, and they went in quickly and they destroyed it in 3 episodes. Mandalorian was dead by the 3rd episode, and Boba Fett right off the bat was bad. Oh, and I don't even get me started on Obi-Wan. Jesus Christ,
that was bad. That was just bad.
Oh no, we have a gate. How are we going to get past this gate? Walk around it.
Wide shot. It's called a wide shot, everybody. Look, there's a place you can walk around and oh, jeez. That was bad.
Mobland. Mobland is, goddamn, that's a good show. Anybody who wants to watch Mobland, Anima and I, we didn't just watch it. We watched the shit out of it.
And renewed Murderbot. I haven't had a chance to see it yet.
Murderbot's been fun. I'm enjoying the crap out of that because they're like, they're woke people in the show. I said, yeah, the woke people are basically idiots on the show that he makes fun of. They
are the joke of the show.
They are the joke, exactly. And it's sort of like I tried to tell people, I didn't lose my shit over the robot in Solo, a Star Wars story. I realized that was Lord and what's his name making fun of Kathleen Kennedy with her feminism. That was a joke. Within people are like, yeah, fucking robot. I'm like going, the robot was a joke. What made the movie bad for me was an Imperial officer naming him Solo. And I'm like, that's fucked up, and that ruined the whole movie for me. That is a train heist in a Star Wars movie on a rail. Like, what are you insane? They've got speeders. They don't ride things on rails at this. There's no need for rails in a sci-fi movie or a sci-fi fantasy show. Oh my God. And Andor, I watched it. Look, it's good, but it's not Star Wars to me. It's not. The only thing good that came out under Kennedy was the TV series Mandalorian and one single movie, Rogue One.
Yep.
Because Rogue One was really good.
And that's
Yeah,
it.
Dune,
You don't catch.
Dune didn't suck until that final scene. Dune, I was enjoying Dune 2 until they fucked up Chani.
Yep.
Oh no, I was out of the movie way since that. When they showed me
Look, man, I cannot help it that you don't like Javier Bardem. I don't know what your beef is.
Wait.
Oh,
No,
you
that's
don't
not
have
my
two
my
sexy
problem was-
guys in the world.
One
with
of my
Spanish
first problems was
accents.
that the atheist Fremen. There are no atheist
No, you're
Fremen.
right. That you and I talked about that before. I forgot about that. Yeah, that pissed me off. Like, what are you talking about? Atheist Fremen? Like, did you read the fucking book?
They are all religious fanatics.
They're fanatics.
Every
That's exactly
single
what
one
they
of them.
all are. They're all fanatical. That's why they stay together as a cult. Technically, the Fremen are a cult.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh,
Wow.
Murderbot's inner monologue. Oh my God, Murderbot makes me laugh. I chuckle so much. I had no idea he could do comedy. He's so fucking funny.
I gotta say this. There is some good stuff out there. And once the deal for Paramount goes through, I'm expecting to increase the amount of good stuff that's out there. We'll see whether or not, based on what they're going to do with Kurtzman once he's done with Star Trek. Because to me, I got the distinct feeling
Well, from what I've heard, he's already done. He's done.
Oh, he's done. He's done. They're not gonna.
Yeah,
they're not
he's
gonna
gone.
give him Star Trek back.
He's not
but-
getting anything back from that.
But here's the thing. What I'm hearing is that they want to go forward, and that one of the ways they may do it is by giving Akiva Goldsman some power to do more Star Trek. And I'm thinking, let me get this straight. So the dude that gave an interview about, and that will be pitching how to move forward in remaking the original Star Trek is the dude you want to
Let me
keep?
put this into terms that everybody will understand. So let me get this straight. You fired the guy that shit all over Star Trek, but you're keeping the guy that pissed all over it. Right? Is that not more succinct?
That is very succinct. Thank you.
Yeah. By the way, before I go, Duster, I started watching it because I love that opening animation. They did a Hot Wheels animation. Seriously, they're Hot Wheels. It's fucking awesome. Intro. And I thought, oh, and the character is good. I like the main character. But oh my God, they cannot write a black woman working in the FBI in the 70s in any respectable way. She's got to be like, I'm oppressed and I'm going to fight my way up. And every single white guy in this show is a fucking racist, sexist. I mean, they're not just, you don't have nuance. JJ cannot fucking write nuance at all. Because there were a lot of good agents that worked at the time that were sexists. The racist part, you got to get them out. But when it came to sexism, sexism was part of the culture.
Well, I mean, racism was invisible at the time as well. On a lot of levels. I mean, I was raised by a fucking racist.
A lot of people hid their racism. Yeah.
Well, it wasn't
They
so much
did
that
the
as
right thing.
they could get away with a lot of that crap at the time because
Depending on what
no
you
one
were.
looked at
Yeah.
they could because no one looked askance at it. I cannot tell you how many racist jokes my stepdad told working with a bunch of Hispanic people down in Corpus Christi, Texas, as a civil engineer. And, it was out in the open a lot of times in the 70s. It wasn't until you did something that overtly, hurt somebody physically
And
or,
it wasn't
cost
always
you your job.
aggressive either, because I saw
Exactly.
racism too, but it wasn't always
Yeah.
aggressive. It was just there. And
Yeah.
JJ can't fucking write that. He has to have every character heavy-handedly written. The feminist, the feminist black chick has to be written heavy-handedly. She's got to be constantly in a state of resistance. Whereas instead of showing somebody trying to work within a system, that's what they should be showing, is how she's trying to work in that system.
Yeah. And in a system in a system that is kind of invisibly working against her.
Right.
Yeah.
But no,
not overtly.
every single character is like ham-fisted, hard.
Yeah.
Women suck. You can't do your job. It's like, oh my God.
If that was the case, how did she end up there? But it's one of those things that I think a lot of people get wrong about the 70s is that it wasn't overt. It was wink, wink, nudge, nudge. He would never say that to her face, but what happened what happened between him and his buddy in the office later on.
Well, they would always play the game of, and this, if they had written the characters this way, I might have stuck with the show. But everything was ham-fisted, and instead, they could have shown these characters as, you're going to find it hard to work within this system, and the person that's warning her is the person that's going to make life hell for her the most, acting like they're there to help her when in fact they don't really give two shits for her and would like to have her leave. And that by the third act of the season, getting into that last part of the season, does she figure out, oh my God, you're the one that's doing this to me. But that takes someone that can actually fucking write to do something like that. And I saw something a second ago. Look, man, I'm going to tell you something. Superman has always been woke to a certain degree. DC Comics was woke when we were kids, but it was woke in the right direction. People have used the word woke so much. I myself do it. But we've used it so much, and then we forget, Keith and I, we're raised in the same generation. Keith and I are woke, but we're woke in the right direction. That we believe in fairness. We do believe that you should give people a chance, no matter who they are, what their gender is, what their color is. You judge a person by the content of their heart and off of who they are and what they do in their life, and not off of physical shit. Like, oh, you're ugly, because that hits in there too. People go, oh, well, it's all about race. No, sometimes it's about ugly. Some people are physically ugly, and I watched that happen to a friend of mine in high school. Two friends of mine in high school, both girls. They were wrecked. I'm still friends with them to this day, and it always bugged me. And I didn't like the way they got treated. I'm not ever going to say their name because I don't want them reminded of the shit they went through in high school. But
I saw it too. If you were not pretty, or if you were too far out of line,
Yeah. But going back to Duster, I don't think. I haven't read up on it lately. Someone says that it's already dusted. I wouldn't be surprised, because I think the audience probably dropped off pretty quickly. Because by the third episode, they focus so much on the woke crap and not paying attention to the cool part of the story, which is the guy that drives the Duster and his gangster boss and that group. That's the interesting story. The FBI side of the story just kept dying each week. Just was terrible. And I'm like, yep, there you go, JJ, fucking it up again. You can't do anything anymore.
Look, they gave him a Batman cartoon that he messed up, and they've given him access to all kinds of things. Look, JJ just needs to go away for about 5 years and come back doing something else completely different. And while he's gone, wherever he goes, take Alex Kurtzman with you, and you two just go find a hole to, because you guys aren't hurting for money. Well, maybe JJ is, but Kurtzman's definitely not hurting for money. And as far as that earlier comment by talking about how the merger has been extended by 90, I forgot who said that. Let me tell you something. Yes, the merger has been extended by 90 days, but was before they found out that the FCC has now let them know that, hey, guess what? Magically, we're willing to come back and let you know that, hey, you don't need a lot of this extra paperwork. We can just push this right through. So, again, all of you people who happen to be fans of the way Kurtzman's done Star Trek, I got to tell you, I feel bad for you because your time is over. That is done.
Yep.
It
is. We saw how quickly it went with Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Doctor Who died much quicker than Star Trek. Star Trek took almost a decade to die, But Doctor Who, they brought in Jodie Whittaker and it flopped. Viewership dropped to numbers that were back to when it was a new series in the 60s, that low.
Yeah.
And you can't do that and survive. And that's the problem with these people. Like the BBC, is populated with these people. They don't give two shits of whether they make money. They don't care. Because they get paid no matter what. Because they're paid by tax dollars. That's why we got to defund anybody who projects a political system, a belief system. They should be absolutely neutral of that shit. What?
Hey, you're right, Penny. You're right about that, Penny. I hate cancer with every ounce of my being.
Lost a good friend this beginning of this year to cancer. That she basically was from when she was in Iraq during the first in the 90s. So I feel you.
Yeah. So, but I'm going to get the hell out of here and let you guys wrap up. I just wanted to promote tomorrow's show and throw my thoughts in. Gary, the main distinction with modern woke is not the end desired. It's the lack of empathy. Absolutely. There's no empathy within the current woke groups out there. And it's insulting to those of us who were there trying to make the world better, trying to be good people and change people's attitudes about race and gender.
Well, you're seeing that you're seeing that on either side of that aisle.
And it's sad to watch what we work for get beat down. But absolutely, it's on both sides, but not as much as it is on the woke side. The woke side is people would think that, oh my God, these people have overpopulated us and they're overwhelming us. No. They just get into choice jobs where they get to do this shit. It's actually a minute number of people who are like that. And it's just they get into these jobs and they get promoted by other people like them into these jobs. And that's what happened with every fucking studio, every major network. And Keith and I watched it going, is anybody paying attention to what's going on here? And they threatened us years ago, we're coming for your comic books. We're coming for your science fiction. You'll learn.
Well,
and if you look at all of our science fiction, all of it, they call Star Trek sexist. And I'm like going, you had a fucking woman as a deck officer.
Mm-hmm.
That's unheard of. What are you talking about? You do the best you can in the period you live in. And Gene Roddenberry pushed the envelope. Man.
Yeah. Uhura was not only a competent comms officer, she was a competent electronics. She took the the helm. Yeah, and you're right. Roddenberry had a lot of shit he had to run uphill against. But yeah,
well,
a black woman, not only a woman, but a black woman.
Yeah. And when we grew up, people sought to persuade you of their viewpoints. There you go. It's called conversation, and you discuss and debate. And if somebody makes a valid point, you stop and go, okay, yeah, I grew up that way. I was like, I debated all the time with people. But anyway, it's neither here nor there. Get back to
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are talking about the 80s.
Yeah, get back to the 80s and Excalibur, because my God, I love that movie. And we haven't done
It's
it
hard
yet.
not to.
We have not done that movie yet, and we need to do it.
Yeah, we definitely need to.
Well, I have the thumbnail already because it's on my list of films that I want to talk about. Because it, for as much as it fumbles with its anachronisms, it is a great Arthurian story, and it's told correctly.
It's my favorite fantasy film. Despite having stuff like Dragon Slayer and other films that have come out, it's still my favorite. It's still the best.
Yeah, Dragon Slayer did not hit for me as a kid. You know.
Yeah, and by the way, before I go, Alpha, once I went in the Army, after I saw Stripes, in fact, the weekend before I left, I watched Stripes, and it was so in my fucking head that during one of our confidence courses, we had to go over one of the confidence courses. I stopped mid-stride on a log as I'm going over the log. And there's a drill sergeant with his legs hooked underneath the log, sitting straight up on this log like a toothpick. And he's just looking down the lane. And I stopped and I looked at him, and his peripheral vision saw me stop. And you can tell when someone's looking at you. And he just turned and he looked at me with that little Smokey the Bear hat. And I screamed, "This is nothing like Stripes!" And then I went on my way. And I could hear him laughing. I heard him laughing behind me. And I've always loved that story because that, I would make my drill sergeants laugh with some of the snarky, smart-ass things I would say. And it would almost make them mad, but I was such a good soldier that they just let me get away with stuff all the time. But anyway,
that's here.
That's my buddy. Yeah. I'm going to get the fuck out of here. You guys have a great morning. I'm going to go hang out with Anima and watch some stuff. So got to watch the movie for tomorrow. So bye, guys. Bye, Ben. Bye, Keith. Bye, Morgan.
Bye, boss. See ya.
Oh, it's going to make me do the 3 buttons again. I click the button to leave, and it says, "Do you want to leave the studio?" I go, "Yes." Oh, and then there's another one that pops up. The 3rd button. Are you sure you want to leave? And here I go.
So, 11 Alpha, Conan. Conan is a genre on its own. Conan made Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I remember someone saying, if Arnold didn't exist, we would have had to make him. But
let's go ahead and finish this list of films. Airplane. Okay, we already talked about that. It's a film called Android with Klaus Kinski. That one was one that I remember just being so weird. I mean, it is good for what it is. Blade Runner, which again, I should have brought that up while Gary was here.
Right?
This is one of the definitive science fiction films, and while it didn't do as well as it should have at the box office, let me just say that time has been more than just kind to this film.
Right? Are we in? Are we still in 81 or?
No, we've crossed over into 82.
82. Okay.
Creepshow came out in 82. E.T. the Extraterrestrial, of course, 82. Let's see. And then we have let's see, Megaforce, which is enjoying a kind of renaissance now. Barry Bostwick is coming out and doing appearances. And of course, the great Persis Khamphata. This was the next film she did after Star Trek: The Motion Picture. Michael Beck and Henry Silva. Again, Hal Needham, Megaforce. This is so much fun. This is just one of those fun movies.
Okay. Yeah, it was. More degrees and red hot thermometer.
And then we have let's see. Then we have Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan from Nicholas Meyer. Again, William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy, DeForest Kelley, James Doohan, Nichelle Nichols, George Takei, Ricardo Montalban, and even more people. I mean, it's an excellent cast. Didn't cost as much as the first one, but it's an excellent cast because you had an excellent director who more importantly, was a very, very, very good and quick screenwriter.
Well, and so, yeah, personal anecdote about watching The Wrath of Khan. So, I did go to see it with a couple of my friends. We lied about what movie we were going to go see. And we get there in the early, we get there right after the first matinee gets out. And this was, so we're in line waiting to get in, and the first matinee gets out, and there are people in tears. And people just coming out and it's like, and so we're going, dude, what happened? They were completely inconsolable at the end of Star Trek II. And so we're going in, not quite spoilered, but wondering what the hell is going to happen. But also, Trek 2 was a massive departure from the motion picture.
Yes, it was a massive departure. First of all, you were dealing with a smaller budget, but it was smaller because they still had a lot of sets. I mean, the motion picture, basically what you had were a lot of sets that they had. So really all they did was just, it's all new costumes and a smarter, cheaper way of making the movie. Because really a lot of stuff is inferred. And since they already had this great model and the sets and everything else, it was pretty much just, well, what do we use all this stuff for? Well, let's just do this. Let's take an episode of the original series and make a sequel to it.
Right. Well, and the thing about just the feel overall was very different because in motion picture we get more Lost in Space, more Buck Rogers feel of everything's ultra modern, one piece jumpsuits, with the fancy buckle and shit like that. Trek Wrath of Khan shows Starfleet as closer to an actual military organization.
Well, that's because of Nicholas Meyer. He was wanting to make something that was closer or more akin to Horatio Hornblower, and he didn't see these as he wanted to basically make a film like this with these ships that are more about being like seafaring tales rather than spaceships, rather than Star Wars or anything like that. And it works with the costumes and everything else. It works.
Oh, the monster room.
It is just a really well done film. And it speaks to the power of what the original series had, and really it speaks to all the things that the people who currently write and produce Star Trek, as well as the executives, don't understand.
Yeah,
they have no concept of what all this means. They're just sort of throwing stuff against the wall, unfortunately.
Right.
Swamp Thing is the next movie from Wes Craven. Louis Jourdan, Adrienne Barbeau, Ray Wise. We also have, and this being an adaptation of a DC comic character that I think it did well for itself, this movie.
Yeah.
But I just think that overall, could this film have been bigger? It could have been. But the fact that you had Wes Craven, who did it on a much smaller budget than I think Warner Brothers would have if they had tried to do with Swamp Thing what they had done with Superman, it would not have worked. John Carpenter's The Thing, Kurt Russell, Wilford Brimley, T.K. Kata, Keith, David. And really the rest of the cast, just an amazing cast, a great horror story. I love this whole film. It is a classic. Then Time Rider: The Adventures of Lyle Swan. I remember when that film came out. It didn't do so well in the theaters, but it did very well on home video and on cable. Fred Ward, Belinda Bauer, Peter Coyote, Richard Mouser, Ed Lauder. I mean, come on.
Yeah, and Time Rider introduces us to the grandfather paradox, I think.
Yep.
He becomes his own grandfather. This is also the year we get Conan, which just completely changed, I think, because it wasn't high fantasy, to go back to what what was mentioned earlier. Conan has always been low fantasy,
Yeah. Well, again, Conan's a really good movie, and it's a great adaptation of those books.
It really is.
That you had a director and a writer who knew exactly what they were wanting to do and knew what parts to pull out of the novels in order to make it go with what they were wanting to actually be about. And it works. All of it works.
Oh, it does, yeah.
You also have, for me, Steve Leisberger's Tron. Jack Bridges, Bruce Boxleitner, David Warner, Cindy Morgan. Now, having said all of that, temporarily, let's go back and also say this. For those of us that were watching these films in the theater, going home, we also had a lot of really good programs. It's not how it started out, because in 1980, you had Galactica 1980, which was a bad attempt to bring back Battlestar Galactica as a TV, to basically just cover up for the fact that ABC realized they had made a mistake in canceling Battlestar Galactica in the first place.
Yeah.
But they didn't have the money nor the resources to bring all the original actors back. So they did the best with what they could. They had a budget. They brought back one or two of the actors, and they tried to basically make an all-new show with an all-new cast, and it basically just didn't work.
Well, and it's because they tried to basically go to the premise that Galactica finds Earth, which was okay. You're completely defeating the original purpose of Galactica, which was the quest to find Earth, and that was the driving force to that whole thing. Is what do we encounter on the way, and who do we become? As we go. And half of what went on, that's why was the drama within the fleet as people tried to survive, and just you get to that. So yeah, I think that failed miserably, and that was one of the very few times I looked at a thing and go, no, just no. But this was also the year that gave us the Dark Crystal.
In
movies,
and,
but yeah,
and then you also had on television, you had Tales of the Gold Monkey.
Yes, I love that show.
A lot of people love that, but unfortunately, not a lot of people at that time watched it. And while it only lasted one season, it to me is an example of a show that had a lot of really cool characters. They didn't have the money to be able to do something on the level of what they were able to accomplish with Raiders of the Lost Ark, but they did the best with what they could with what they had. The other television show that tried to do the same thing, speaking of Tron, was Bring 'Em Back Alive. So whereas with Tron, you had a lot of high-tech stuff, a lot of money being spent. Bring 'Em Back Alive was an attempt to take a real person and kind of fictionalize parts of his life while also trying to, have his adventures play out on screen. And for those of you who don't know the story of Frank Buck, you should look it up, seriously. But Bruce Boxleitner and Cindy Morgan, who I think were married or either had just met and started dating or were married by this point, ended up doing that show. And so they were kind of, quote unquote, reuniting on this CBS series for Bring 'Em Back Alive compared to ABC's Tales of the Gold Monkey. And like Gold Monkey, Bring 'Em Back Alive only lasted one season. But let me just say, they had an incredible cast for that show. And it would not end Bruce Boxleitner's association with CBS. He would be back in a few years with Scarecrow and Mrs. K.
Yeah.
And that is still one of my favorites also from him. Bruce Boxleitner is just a great actor, period.
He really is.
Should be used for anything.
Right.
And shame on you, Warner Brothers, for not figuring out a way to do the Babylon 5 reboot. I'm sorry. It's shame on you guys. It's very short-sighted.
They canned that.
Yeah.
So. We also had
actually I should say they're going to try to do it without the creator. That's the real reason why they're not doing it. It's not so much they don't want it. They're going to do it, but they're going to hire an all new group of people to do it. So basically, they're gonna take the basic idea of what they ended up doing over at CBS with Star Trek.
Okay.
That's not going to work well. That's not going to work well.
No,
let's see. We're going to finish off 82 with Zapped. Scott Baio, Willie Ames, Heather Thomas, Robert Mandan. That was just a nice late night feature. Scott Baio, Willie Ames. It's basically a few off-color jokes, nudity, but nothing on the order of, say, Porky's. You know, Porky still won out to be a little dirty, you know.
Yeah.
And then we have for 1983, Brainstorm. Christopher Walken, Natalie Wood, Louise Fletcher, Douglas Trumbull directed this film. This is one of those films that, wow. It's hard to explain, but basically, if you had the power to be able to record a person's thought and put it on a kind of weird looking device, and there's a character in the film who ends up using this device, and while they have it on, they die. And so the device actually records what happens next, and that's a big part of the plot of the movie.
The problem, and the problem with that is experiencing it without dying yourself.
Yeah. So, Brainstorm. It's I like it, but I like it mainly because Douglas Trumbull was just a freaking visionary. And I think if he had been given more time and had Natalie Wood not passed away, I think they would have been able to work out a lot of the little things that still had yet to be accomplished with the film before they eventually had to put it out into theaters. Let's see. The comedy, The Creature wasn't nice. Leslie Nielsen, Cindy Williams. Let's see. The Dead Zone. David Cronenberg's version of the Stephen King novel, starring Christopher Walken, Brooke Adams, Tom Skerritt, and Martin Sheen. Let's see. And then we had, let's see, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, which is an all right movie.
It's not really in the Halloween universe, though, to me.
Yeah. Well, not of the one that became, that became known. Look, it's a good movie on its own if you didn't know anything about the first two films.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's the way I'm going to put that. But Tom Atkins and Dan O'Hillery,
Right.
And then Hurley. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
yeah. Who he was in Starfighter, Last Starfighter, right?
Among others.
Yeah.
His son is in the movie Willow, and his son was the Mad Mardigan's friend
Okay. Yes.
who marched through.
Mhm.
Well, his son is also from the cast of the original cast of Happy Days.
Huh.
The original concept of Happy Days, because
Right.
his son was the original oldest son of the show. He played Chet, the basketball kid, who was
Richie's brother.
mysteriously then, Richie's older brother, who eventually was faded from the show. They didn't write him out, but they sort of just stopped talking about him.
Mhm.
He was kind of just faded from the show.
Right.
Let's see. One of my favorites, and a film that, if anybody had any common sense, I would jump right on now with the way technology is and do this movie, do the sequel that everybody's been waiting for. Crawl.
Crawl.
No,
God.
no,
Yes.
No,
Peter Yates.
no, leave Crawl alone. That thing is perfect the way it is.
It's time. It's time to show their son.
Yeah, no,
It's time to do that story.
No.
It's time to do that story.
Krull had the potential to be so much more than it was.
Yes.
You know?
But
I
it's
mean,
still
heresy.
I love
Yeah,
it.
it was still
I hear
it was,
heresy.
It's still a good movie.
Yeah.
The book, the comic, everything about it. Ken Marshall, who would eventually wind up as a kind of pseudo off member of the cast of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Lisette Anthony, Freddie Jones, pretty much a lot of British actors who, if you didn't know their names, you're going to be seeing them in a lot of movies after this. But
Right.
one of the names is from, let's just say this movie's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
We are about to have a movie come out, though, from one of the stars of this movie. And that's Liam Neeson.
Yes. I didn't hear his name and I was like, did I miss it? But yeah, no, Liam Neeson.
Yeah, Liam Neeson, along with oh man, what is that actor's name?
Hey.
Who played Hagrid in the Harry Potter films?
Oh yes.
I thought Robbie Coltrane was dead.
Coltrane.
Robbie Coltrane
yes,
is dead, but he's in this movie.
By the way, Steve, somebody that you may know, some James Moncrief.
Oh, don't know. I've never heard him.
Yeah, I'm feeling that. Automan.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about the ripoff of Tron.
Automan.
Rip off. What are you saying? What do you mean?
What you talking about, Lou? No.
Thanks, Chief.
I love Automan.
Another one that shows up this year, not in film, but not really in theaters, was V.
Yes. Yes, I was going to get to that.
Okay, so
but you're right though. V is a film that you have to understand. It was an event. The original V was a must-see television event for NBC, and pretty much just a science fiction retelling of basically the story of the Nazis in the 1930s and 40s. So very well done. Very well done. Great cast too. Let's see. From Krull, we go to Maelstrom, The Destruction of Jared Sid, starring Tim Thomerson, Kelly Preston, Richard Mall. This is one of those Charles Band films, and Charles Band was the king of the cheesy late night B films. But you know what? It was good because Charles Band. That's all I got to say about it. It's because Charles Band.
Right.
You know,
Well, and
let's
we
see.
also have we cannot forget about where was it? Space Hunter: Adventures in the Forbidden Zone.
Yes, I was coming to that too.
Oh, you have that one on your
That's a
list
good
too?
one. Yes,
Oh, yeah.
yes.
Okay, because
Well, I was going to talk about a little movie called Prisoners of the Lost Universe, starring Richard Hatch, Kay Lenz, and John Saxon. John Saxon.
Yeah, you almost have to say his name that way.
Yeah, you do. Return of the Jedi, director Richard Marquand's entry into the Star Wars universe, and the final film of the original trilogy. Of course, Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, Billy D. Williams, so on and so forth. Rock and Rule, Paul LeMat, Deborah Harry, Don Franks, along with Earth, Wind, and Fire, and along with Cheap Trick and dozens of other bands. Look, if you're one of those people that really enjoyed Canadian animation and a film called Heavy Metal, you've not seen Rock and Rule, okay? You got to check it out. You do, because it's just one of those films that, see, this is one of those films that if you did not grow up in the 80s, and if all you did was Google stuff and go through things, this is one of those films that easily falls through the cracks, even though it's a good movie. It's not, it's a B movie, but it's a good movie for what it is. And while it's not on the same level, in my opinion, as Heavy Metal, I still watch it. Whenever I find it on, I'll still watch it. It's just a good movie with a great cast and an incredible soundtrack. Debbie Harry is the female singing voice to the lead actress, which I think it was just Debbie. Yeah, she's the female lead in the film. Paul LeMat, his singing voice is Robin Zander, lead singer of Cheap Trick. And let's see, good film. Check it out. We also have, again, the aforementioned Space Hunter, Adventures in the Forbidden Zone. Peter Strauss, Molly Ringwald, Ernie Hudson, Michael Ironside. Michael Ironside, let me say this. That dude kicks too much ass. Okay? He is a badass actor. And in the 80s, he was every place, including V. So
yeah.
Come on,
well,
give it up
his
for him.
His voice is just, just amazing. And as an actor, he can take the most banal line and make it sound ominous.
Yes. Yes, and he's still working. He's still working, kids.
I know. Yeah.
So everybody in Hollywood, hire this guy. Okay, fill up his schedule. You will not be disappointed. This guy rocks.
Yeah.
Strange Invaders, Paul LeMat, Nancy Allen, Diana Scarwald. This is like a throwback film of basically aliens invading. It's an alien invasion film. It's a throwback in the 1980s. Come on.
Right.
Check it out. Have a good time with it. Superman 3 from the guy who basically kind of redid Superman 2, in my opinion, and did it not so well. Christopher Reeve, Richard Pryor, Robert Vaughn, and Ed O'Toole. Okay, let me just say this. This was not a film that both Richard Pryor and Christopher Reeve, they did not like this movie.
Nobody liked that movie.
They got paid,
Yeah.
but this is another rendition of you have a bunch of people who decide to make a comic book movie and take a character, but have no real understanding of how to do a lot of the stuff in the comic. And rather than ask the comic book people for help, they try to figure their own way around. The original script for this movie had the antagonist not be Robert Vaughn's character. That whole storyline with all of that stuff was written later, or written to help bring down the cost. Okay. Originally, the script was written so that they could have oh man, what Superman villain was it that they had again? It was oh geez. Brainiac. It was written for Brainiac, and they couldn't figure out how to make Brainiac work. Let me repeat that. They couldn't figure out how to make Brainiac work.
And this is the era where computers were first started to become part of the mainstream cautionary tale. You know?
Yeah. But also, you know, it was just dumb to do what they did. They didn't really need Richard Pryor, and Richard Pryor figured that out. You know, but he took the money and he was in the movie. This is also another one of those where you can tell that this was thought up by a bunch of executives. You know, so, and again, I do agree it's bad, but it's not Superman 4 bad. But it's bad.
It's on the way down to Superman.
It's getting there.
It's getting there.
I mean, and it's not bad in, you know, it's not Iron Fist good. You know,
Wow.
I mean, yeah, because it's not by comparison to awesome. It's bad in comparison to worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Next, we have Videodrome from David Cronenberg. More body horror, starring James Woods and Deborah Harry, or Debbie Harry. Whichever way you want to, you know. She's still a Rock and Roll Hall of Famer in my book.
Oh, hell yeah.
John Badham's War Games. Matthew Broderick, Dabney Coleman, John Wood, Ali Sheedy. Good movie, still effective to this day, even with the fact that the technology has moved on a lot since then. This is still a very effective film. And again, it's just a great old-fashioned techno thriller.
The thing I loved about that was that, you know, it doesn't end with some high-end action sequence. It's the computer figuring shit out.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
and that's what makes it, I think, still effective. You know, is that Broderick doesn't
it's a
turn
Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah, it is. You're right. That it really is, because Broderick basically asks it, you know, to play tic-tac-toe, and suddenly,
spoilers.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. It's just only really recently come out. You know, but yeah, it's just it's a very good, you know, yeah.
Well, yeah, it is. It is, and again, this is one of those that one of those films that when it came out was a really good cautionary tale, mainly for a lot of parents, and gave them second thoughts about buying Junior that PC that they were asking for.
Right.
Of course, we have Reb Brown in The Hunter from the Future.
Right. I was wondering if that was on your list. That was deliciously.
Well, that one and
Mhm.
I had that one and Extra because I remember Extra again.
Mhm.
That film was it's British science fiction, but wow, wow, that film just
Was a film, right?
I just gotta say I've never seen anything like that before, and it's
Kind of hope you never do
definitely
again.
something. Yeah. It's definitely made for late night cable. Let's just put it that way. It's
Yeah.
definitely made for late night cable because I cannot see going to a movie theater to watch that.
Mhm.
So, oh geez, we got to wrap this up. One final year to go. We're going to start with 2010, the sequel to 2001, directed by Peter Hyams, starring Roy Scheider, John Lithgow, Helen Mirren, Coeur de La. Let me just say this. Helen Mirren's Russian in this movie is so good because she actually is of Russian descent.
Mhm.
And I gotta say, having not seen her for a little bit, when I watched this movie, I really had forgotten about her being an Excalibur.
Mhm.
So I could buy her as a Russian commander. She was very good. Everybody's really good in this film.
Mhm.
And I just think that this is one of those films that you really have to at least give a chance to because the message is solid.
Mhm.
The film is just good. And I kept waiting for someone to come along and do the next book in the series. So,
Yeah.
but it's Roy Scheider. Come on.
This is true. Yeah.
Then we have The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension.
That was,
I don't say too much about this movie. It is a cult classic, and it's a film that could have done slightly better
Mhm.
had it not been released the same weekend as Purple Rain. All I
Yeah.
gotta
Yeah. They could have done that one.
Good movie though. Should have
Mhm.
gotten a sequel.
Yeah.
This is a really good film, cult film that
Mhm.
is a salute to all of the pulp novels and movies that were made, back in the 30s and 40s. And
Yeah.
in terms
Uh,
of science fiction and combining it with kind of an 80s type sheen on top of it. This is one
Mhm.
of those films where you don't know if they should just go ahead and just do a long-standing eventual sequel film or try to remake the whole thing. What I do
Mhm.
know is they eventually there was an idea to try to bring it to TV, and that eventually got stopped.
Mhm.
There is a sequel book out there, an official sequel novel. Okay. So if you are a big Buckaroo Banzai fan, you need to get it. It's from Dark Horse Publications, same people that gave us Dark Horse Comics.
Mhm.
Let me just say, wow. If
I
you
have
did
that one
not
on my
read
list.
the original novelization to the film, you need to check that out. You can get that on eBay or on Amazon.
Mhm.
And then buy your copy of the sequel novel. It is The World of Buckaroo Banzai. There is still a lot left in there, but it's going to
Mhm.
really depend on how fans treat this IP from here on out. You want to see more? You're going to have to do more, which means get behind a lot of this stuff. And that's really going to be everybody needs to go out and just buy a copy of the sequel book and read it
Mhm.
and let them know what you think. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. But yeah, and that year, I mean, 84, man, it was a busy year.
It was. It's like I said, we didn't know what we were getting into once you crossed over and hit 1980.
Right?
You know,
Exactly. Yeah.
we just weren't really. I mean, there are a lot of other films, non-genre films, that were coming out. 1980 was a very busy year, and so when you go from 80 to 84, that is a lot of stuff packed in there. You know, 1984 was, I think, the year that they re-released. They released a version of the film Metropolis, which had been colorized and given a new soundtrack by Giorgio Moroder, and several groups. Bonnie Tyler, Queen, well, not Queen, it was really Freddie Mercury, and various other artists did an incredible job with the soundtrack to that movie. Again, one of the best. But now, given the fact that they have found so much of the original footage that had been edited out and not seen, some of it since the film premiered, it kind of makes the 1980s colorized version kind of a moot point.
Yeah.
You know? I just think that somebody needs to eventually just remake it. I think enough time has passed. I think I would like to see someone attempt to try to adapt the book. I've read the novel, the original novel, Metropolis. And having seen some of the scenes they've yet to find and recover to put back into the film, they really did a very good job of trying to adapt that book. Especially the whole thing about the cottage, I mean, the little home on top of the building there. The main character's father, John Fredrickson, the symbolism is just, there's a lot of symbolism within this story. And I think it's one of those films that if you had the right person doing it, you could bring out a whole lot of meaning, a lot more meaning than what the original film had. There's a reason why people still talk about this movie to this day. And I think there's enough material where if you could just get the novel and do a version of the novel without trying to add anything or thinking that you're smarter than the author and trying to add things that don't belong in there, I think you'll have something special. So
but I mean, this year the list for this year is going to be huge.
Yes. Brother from Another Planet from John Sayles, Joe Morton, Daryl Edwards, Steve James. This was the film that was kind of like the Black Man E.T. Basically the best way to put it. But there were a lot of people, a lot of critics that had this on their list of one of the top films of the year. David Lynch's Dune, Francisca Annis, Leonardo Cimino, Brad Dourif. Look, this is a very well done David Lynchian adaptation. I have seen almost every version, every cut of this film. While it is not totally within keeping of what the novel had, it's, for many, it's a better adaptation. Okay.
For a lot of us, it was our introduction to Dune. I remember going back and reading after watching this. Yeah,
it was that good. Dreamscape, Dennis Quaid, Max von Sydow, Christopher Plummer. Again, it's another film that did at the box office, but did very well on home video and cable. This is another cable classic right here. Let's see. For me, Electric Dreams from director Steve Barron, a video director who started making movies. And this film is a nice, sweet little film. This is not for everybody, but if you grew up in the 80s and you saw this movie, this has a lot of nostalgia attached to it, especially for me. I was allowed to go see this film. This is the first film I ever saw in advance. I went to an advanced preview showing of the movie, and I had a fantastic time with it. All of the actors that were in it, the soundtrack, the late great Lenny Von Dolen, Virginia Madsen, who just lost her brother Michael, and Bud Cort. You know, those three doing a phenomenal job in this really sweet and wonderful romantic film, which is about technology and the 80s at the same time. It's just, and it's done without any real cynicism. It's really meant to be a sweet movie about two people who find each other and the computer that gets in their way. So,
right. So I gotta ask you: is Richard Gere's, Michael Pere's entry this year on your list? Because if it isn't, it's on mine.
Oh,
the Rock and Roll Fable.
Yeah, that's in there. That's in here.
Okay, good.
I'm getting to it. I'm getting to it.
All right. I haven't had a chance to see your list today, so I'm.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Firestarter, Drew Barrymore, David Keith, George C. Scott, Martin Sheen, Heather Locklear, another Stephen King film, did very well at the box office, and again, a good role for Drew Barrymore. Look, I don't have to say it. It's Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
You know, for the longest time, highest grossing film, I think, comedy really, ever in the history of Columbia Pictures.
Yeah.
Ghostbusters was just freaking good.
And Ghostbusters is like, Ghostbusters to me was like if National Lampoon made it.
Yes, that's it. That's it. Now, those of us that were of age when that movie came out have a different way of seeing Ghostbusters than a lot of people who were either way, way younger or not born yet. Because the way that Ghostbusters is seen by much younger people is really different than those of us that were old enough to go see it. You know, those of us that were teenagers or older, you know. I have a different view of Ghostbusters than a lot of people that I know that were younger. They see it within the elements of the Ghostbusters animated Saturday morning cartoon, which I have no love for. I don't like it. You know, it's way too kiddish for me. I love the original Ghostbusters. I love that it walks this tightrope between being a comedy and being a horror at the same moment. Yeah. And you can't do that and lean into a lot of the kiddiness that the animated Saturday morning cartoons had. I find it to be incompatible. That's the reason why Ghostbusters 2 didn't work.
Right.
That was an attempt to bring the Saturday morning cartoon to life.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why that film went the way that it did. You know? And again, this isn't to say that, anybody that likes Saturday morning cartoons or anybody that likes Ghostbusters, you guys ain't nothing. That is not it at all. If those are what you enjoy and you love Ghostbusters, love it. Love it, love it, love it. I don't really want anyone to stop loving anything. Love what you love. It just didn't work for me because I was too old to see it in through those kinds of eyes. I was already a teenager. I was, girls and everything else.
Well, and here's the thing that I think changes how Ghostbusters looks to you and me, who start with Ghostbusters and then see the cartoons and then see two, is that the original. The same thing happens with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which also first issue of TMNT is issued in '84. Is that we see it through a lens of just like us seeing the original trilogy and then seeing the prequel and the sequel trilogy. we're gonna see it through a different lens because the
Yes.
impact of "No, I am your father," because I can't say it any other way, is,
Well, yeah.
hits differently, which is why viewing order is so important.
Yes, but also, the other thing is that, like with a film like Stripes,
Mhm.
or with Meatballs, or
Mhm.
other films that are related or
Meatballs.
loosely related
Yeah,
to Saturday
cat
Night
movies.
Live,
Right?
there's a lot of adult humor within Ghostbusters, and it's the reason why Peter Venkman works on multiple levels. Children
Mhm.
thinks he's funny because he's funny. He's funny for the same reason that Bugs Bunny is funny.
Mhm.
Except that when you get older and you realize, whoa, there's a lot of adult jokes being, inserted
Mhm.
into these films. And a lot of that stuff goes right over your head. Peter
Mhm.
Venkman, for those of us that were just teenage boys growing up in the 80s,
Mhm.
we knew this dude. We
We
could
were
see his
this
vibe.
dude.
Yeah. Well, I'm not saying I was that dude, but I'm saying I understood what he was,
Yeah.
You go into Dana's apartment, you're looking to score. Come on.
Yeah, no,
And
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Venkman was our lens into the Ghostbusters world.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Venkman was it was us who we hoped to be.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. And it works. It works on multiple levels. And I think when you do Ghostbusters like that to work on multiple levels, then the whole premise works.
Oh, absolutely. And when you bearing in mind too, Ghostbusters, like I said, was the appeal to it was that it was like National Lampoon in that it didn't take itself too seriously, but it was a poke in the eye to people who did take themselves too seriously.
Yes. Yes.
You know,
It was just a parody. It was a parody of capitalism, partially.
Yeah. Oh, hell
yeah. And I liked it for that. But I also liked the fact that it was just first and foremost, it was just a funny movie. And it worked. It worked on so many levels. And again, comedy is hard.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really hard when you're trying to communicate comedic things to other cultures and countries around the world. If you can find success doing that, then you know you've done something.
Oh, absolutely.
And, these guys did it.
Yeah.
Dan Aykroyd, Nerdiness, they did it.
Yeah. And the other thing I loved about this is Aykroyd as Ray. Was a total departure from the very charismatic roles that he tended to play.
Yeah.
Ray was this bumbling smart guy, and it was Murray who was the charmer, which, and that was, it was Venkman who was
Murray being Murray.
Murray. Absolutely.
Yeah, he's the only one that's not really doing anything outside of what he's played before. You've seen Bill Murray in Meatballs. That's pretty much the same character he's playing in this movie.
You've seen Bill Murray in Stripes. He's the same.
Yeah, the same character.
But yeah. I mean, but then you have Egon, who is
Harold Ramis.
Yeah, Harold Ramis. My God, that man is, he plays the straight man to both Venkman and Ray.
Yeah, and it turns out, he's more of a character himself. So,
absolutely,
he is so straight that it's just, he's almost, it's just. To me, without his character, you could not have had a show like The Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, this is true. Because that's that's the foundation that Sheldon was built on.
Yes,
and he kind of embodied that clueless nerd,
or one who willingly just sort of ignores. I mean, it wasn't the fact that the thing about thing about his character is that it's not so much that things got by him; it's the fact that he ignored it.
Yeah, well, he
You
didn't
look at his face, and it's just like, Sheldon doesn't get stuff.
Right. Well, see,
Okay.
there are parts where it's hard to tell whether or not he doesn't get it or that he just doesn't care. Because when he can deliver a line, I collect slimes, molds, and spores. Deadpan
Spores,
to
molds, and fungus.
spores, molds, and funguses. Yeah, deadpan to Annie Potts. Who was
Clearly interested in him.
Yeah, pretty clearly on fire for this guy. Which is why also I felt betrayed by Ghostbusters too.
Yeah, that's another thing. I mean, it's just
they kind of character, but Ghostbusters it made it okay because Venkman was, like you said, was was who we wanted to be, and so you have him hanging out with these guys. It made it cool enough,
Well, he was also the guy that the joke with Venkman was that, hey, you can go to college and you can get your degree, but really in the end, a lot of this stuff, it's all a con.
Yeah,
it's all
absolutely.
a con. He's the con artist out of the three of them.
Right.
You've got two of them that really are into this. They are scientists through and through. They mean this stuff. They're the guys that it's like, wow, this is real for us.
100% earnest.
And then you've got Venkman, who's like, like, okay.
Yeah, no, and, with the whole thing with the cards, because Venkman and when in the jail scene where he's going, all right, pretend I don't know anything about all this science stuff, and Egon is like, you never studied, did you? And I'm going, Egon, he never went to class.
Yeah. Yeah. He's got a doctorate, but he never really went to class.
Yeah, no. He paid some smart kid like you to do his papers for him.
And he still made it. He made it.
Yeah. He knows just enough. He knows 6 big words and he uses them a lot.
Yep. Just enough to be able to keep the co-eds showing up, if you know what I mean.
Exactly. And keep the board, bamboozled.
Yeah, that was the big thing. He didn't have to have responsibility, no real responsibility, because you're in college. If you can win that hustle, if you can get basically the ability to become a tenured professor, you got it made. That's the big con. You can just hang out and just basically do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Anyway, good movie.
So what's that? Yeah, excellent movie. Yeah.
One of my personal favorites, Iceman. Timothy Hutton, Lindsay Krause, John Lone, and in my opinion, John Lone should have won the Academy Award for his performance in this film. For those of you who have never seen it, this is the story of an oil company that on accident uncovers the frozen body of a Neanderthal hunter, and they revive him. And
but
it is the incredible soundtrack for this movie. All I can tell you without trying to give anything away is that I'm warning you now, and people who watch the show and watch me on even a lot of different shows know when I say this. You better have that box of tissues handy at the end of the movie. You are going to need it. Okay? I'm telling you right now, you will need it.
Mm-hmm.
Iceman is that well done. I did not expect that movie to have the kind of effect that it did on everybody that's seen it. I didn't expect that. This is one of these. This film just came out of nowhere for me, And I remember going to the theater and watching it and just being blown away. This is one of my all-time favorite films. Great cast and well-told story. Next is the comedy The Ice Pirates. Robert Urich, Mary Crosby, Michael D. Roberts.
My first crush on Angelica Houston.
Yes, Angelica. This is her first movie. This is her big. Well, not technically. She actually had been in several of her father's films, but this is her first as an actress. This is her debut. I think. Man, who else is in it? Oh, geez. I know there's a whole. The cast of Ice Pirates is just funny.
Oh, it is hilarious. Yeah, they're just incredible. The whole thing. I mean, God, what were they not in? I mean,
yeah. Oh, here we go. Okay, Ice Pirates cast. Okay, let me just say officially that. First of all, not a lot of people knew that Robert Urich could do comedy. Okay,
right? Because
he wasn't that well known for it.
Right, because we were used to him Vegas, I think, at the time.
Yes, his hit series Vegas. Mary Crosby, well, I think she hadn't yet joined the cast of Dallas yet. Angelica Houston, John Matuzak. The great John Matuzak, man, I miss that guy. Ron Perlman, also, I think one of his debuts. Let's see, John Carradine, Supreme Commander. Character actress Natalie Cor. I mean, this really is. This was a comedy that was pretty much done. Like it was done for television, but it was actually a big screen comedy. So, Ian Abercrombie. Wow.
Yeah.
Great list. But again, this was, man, Rodney Tarkington. Wow. Anyway, funny little movie. Bruce Valanche. Wow. Anyway, for those of us that actually did grow up in the 80s, this was a funny movie.
Oh, it was, and again, earlier on Perlman, but yeah, there was, the space herpy was,
yeah.
The whole time scene. I mean, just it was so good because it didn't take itself too seriously. It was kind of like
not meant to be taken seriously at all.
This was the National Lampoon version of Star Wars, is what it was. Without anybody from National Lampoon actually being involved. I mean, it was just, yeah. Ice Pirates was a fun movie. I loved that movie.
Wow. The next film is The Last Starfighter by Nick Castle, Lance Guest, Catherine Mary Stewart, Robert Preston, Dan O'Hillary.
Yes.
Let me just say, yes, classic. If you're gonna do a sequel, now's the time to put it out. Enough time has passed. Their kid gonna be out there fighting amongst the stars.
I thought there was one in the works. I thought
there's been talk of one, and we haven't gotten around to it. That's all I can say.
Yeah,
lots and lots and lots of talks of one. So,
right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Catherine Mary Stewart was also in another film called Night of the Comet. With,
Zombies.
Kelly Maroney and Robert Beltran. And this is the first time I ever remember seeing Robert Beltran in anything.
Zombies from space.
Yes. Wow. Also, this is a film that here's a film that was also a small movie, but it did gangbusters on home video and on cable. And it's the Philadelphia Experiment. Michael Prairie, Nancy Allen, Eric Christmas. This is one of those movies that you could watch in conjunction with a lot of other films that we've already talked about up to this point.
And that's at one point I entertained the idea of a Philadelphia Experiment crossover with the Final Countdown.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that would be a nice double feature. The Final Countdown and then the Philadelphia Experiment.
Yeah.
You could do a crossover, but you could also show them as a nice double feature.
They would make a great double feature, wouldn't they?
Yeah. That puts a nice twist on the story.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't it? Doesn't it just? Yeah.
Oh, geez. Let's see. Another is the cult, and I do mean cult classic, Repo Man. Harry Dean Stanton, Emilio Estevez, Olivia Barish. I'm telling you right now, this film is the very definition of cult classic. Between the soundtrack and the cast of this film, you've got something very special going on. And again, you grew up in the 80s, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is an incredible film for those of us that are big fans. I just got to say, Repo Man, if you don't own a copy of it by now, go out and get your copy right now.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. The Return of Godzilla, starring Raymond Burr. Man, more kaiju adventures. I say that to then jump to this. Runaway. Director Michael Crichton. Starring Tom Selleck, Cynthia Rhodes, Gene Simmons, and Kirstie Alley.
Yeah, we covered this one earlier on too.
Yes, we did. This is part of Tom Selleck trying to basically
step away,
but also trying to make up for.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Tom Selleck is one of the few individuals that I think was fated to be famous no matter what. If things had actually worked out, it either would have been Tom Selleck making Raiders of the Lost Ark and not being in Magnum PI, or it would have been Tom Selleck able to do both Raiders of the Lost Ark and Magnum PI, which is really what the story is now. I mean, what the story is. The unfortunate thing is he had to bow out of doing Raiders of the Lost Ark because he had gotten picked up for a pilot that he had shot called Magnum PI, or Magnum,
right?
As Tom calls it now. And the irony of him dropping out and Harrison Ford getting the part was due to the delay of making the Magnum series. He had more than enough time to be able to shoot Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, he could have done both.
He could have done both. And just think of how, man, I don't think we would have gotten 9 seasons of Magnum. I don't think we would have gotten all those seasons of Magnum had he been in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
No, we wouldn't have. Yeah.
I think he would have been too busy getting offers from too many other places. He would not have been able to make movies like Lassiter or a film like what was the World War one that he had done? High Road to China.
High Road to China.
High Road to China.
Right. And I don't know that we would have gotten quickly down under, which I think is one of his better films. It may be underrated, but putting him on the screen with Alan Rickman, my God.
Well, High Road to China, opposite Bess Armstrong, is a well done film. And if you've never seen it, check it out. A lot of these early films get skipped over because they weren't Raiders of the Lost Ark or anything, but I think they should be given a second chance.
Yeah.
Well done movies, all. Then 1984 was also the year that we got the movie 1984 from Michael Radford, director John Hurt, Richard Burton, Susanna Hamilton, an incredible soundtrack with the lead title track by the Eurythmics. Good adaptation. Good adaptation. Let's see. Of course, it's Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. Directed by Leonard Nimoy. Let me just say this. Good movie. Very good movie. Definitely something that they ended up having to do. They put it out as quickly as they could get it. And all the cast returns, and you add Christopher Lloyd to the cast. Again, this is a well done movie. There's not much more one could say about it, other than the fact that the producer of the film and its director, Leonard Nimoy, both the Nimoy and the producer, butted heads a lot. And it's one of the reasons why things became rocky. It also explains why Star Trek 4, the next film in the series, was made the way that it was written the way that it was. Because of that relationship between the two just broke down. And it broke down to such an extent that after Star Trek 4, Nimoy was pretty much, I'm out. I'm done. Yeah. And it affected, I think, had he not, I'm thinking, had William Shatner not decided to use the same producer and instead had used a different producer, I think Nimoy would have been more inclined to be helpful during the making of Star Trek V. I also am a firm believer that Star Trek V they actually shot the script that Shatner actually wrote, would have been a much better film, because the novelization kicks butt. The novelization is amazing. It's not the film that you were shown in theaters.
Right.
The theatrical film was affected by a lot of different things.
Right.
Number one being the fact that Paramount just dragged its feet and cost them Sean Connery.
Oh, that would have been, yeah.
Sean Connery was the original choice to play Spock's brother. And this is one of the things about working with this producer that Nimoy didn't like. Because I still think to this day that Nimoy believed that he dragged his feet on all kinds of things, and cost them Sean Connery.
Right. Which I think reimagining that with Sean Connery and some other changes, would have been a huge change, because
Well, the studio cut the budget to the point where they could not afford to even hire Industrial Light and Magic to do the visual effects.
Yeah.
Another reason why Leonard Nimoy didn't like the producer.
Yeah.
So, when they had to shoot the film, the visual effects was being handled by a small effects house out of New Jersey. So they were the ones that were shipped the model that ILM had built for Star Trek II. Well, the model that had been used for Star Trek the Motion Picture, the model that ILM had done some work on in shooting Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, these guys were given it and couldn't do anything with it, so they had to use a lot of photo tricks to basically try to the damage done from Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan when they had the Enterprise, do all, when the Reliant damaged the Enterprise, they never fixed the model, and they didn't have the money and the techniques to be able to fix the model. So they had to use a lot of camera tricks to basically reshoot the same side of the model, in this case, the right side, and try to make it match and see about trying to get away with, basically not showing you the damaged side of the model. Basically.
Right. Yeah.
And again, Nimoy would just probably sit there just shaking his head, just like, this is dumb. This is dumb.
Right.
Yeah. But Star Trek 3, yeah, good time had by everybody. So,
absolutely.
and a good movie, which would eventually lead to probably the most popular Star Trek film. Not the most successful, but the most popular Star Trek film. This film leads into.
Right.
So, John Carpenter's Starman, starring Jeff Bridges, Karen Allen, Charles Martin Smith. This is a film that had been written, according to John Carpenter. He'd actually started writing well before E.T. ever came out. And so he had this idea before E.T. This is a movie that is very, very well done. And you can understand why Jeff Bridges got an Academy Award nod for this performance. He, Karen Allen, and I think even Charles Martin Smith, I think, was nominated for Best Supporting. Ultimately, I think it led eventually to the television series that had a unique take on it. For some reason, it just seemed to me that when Alex Kurtzman did his version of The Man Who Fell to Earth, that a lot of it seemed to borrow from Starman and the Starman television series. That's just what it seemed like to me. That's just my interpretation. Another reason why Alex Kurtzman really is just, he likes to borrow and be influenced by a whole lot of things to make what he makes. I really do not believe this guy has any real sense of creativity in his body, which would then just put him right down there with Kathleen Kennedy. So, James Cameron's The Terminator.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, what can be said about this film? It's a classic. And again, for those of us that grew up in the 80s, instant classic.
Yeah. Well, and it's cemented Schwarzenegger as an action star beyond a shadow of a doubt, because he plays the bad guy in this.
Yep.
And
well, I mean, it's just really well done.
It really is.
It is a film that, again, time travel. A lot of time travel films being made in the 80s. Let me just put it that way. So, but it works. It has a very unique and original way of using time travel within this story. But again, for those of you who have never seen the original film, you should check it out.
Oh, God. Michael Biehn just kicked ass in this film, too.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
Oh, God, yeah.
Anyway, the final film, The Toxic Avenger. Lloyd Kaufman, Michael Hirst, both co-directing this. I think they're getting ready to release, if they haven't already, the remake.
Yeah.
The complete remake of this. Reboot, really. Look, it's Lloyd Kaufman. without Lloyd Kaufman, James Gunn would not be here. Okay, James Gunn was given his opportunity by Lord Kaufman. So Lloyd, for whatever reason, James is able to stick Lloyd to have him make cameo appearances in a lot of his movies.
Mm-hmm.
The same way that Stan Lee would make cameo appearances in a lot of the Marvel films, Lloyd Kaufman is somewhere in a James Gunn film, and I guarantee you there will be some sort of a Lloyd Kaufman either appearance and or reference in the new Superman film. So
I don't doubt it. So, and of course, we have Streets of Fire, Michael
yes,
Pare,
yes,
awesome rock and roll fables, dystopian, not quite sci-fi, but not quite modern.
Well, and it was meant to be part one of a trilogy.
It makes sense. Yeah,
it was originally meant to be part one of a trilogy, and the first film just didn't do that well. That's the long and short of it.
Right. Now, this year, in 1984, which was my sophomore year in high school, kind of for context, I've been playing D&D for several years. This is where the chick track Dark Dungeons appears. And for a lot of nerds, who were into D&D, this put a serious damper on the 80s for us.
Yeah.
It really did. So yeah, this was the 80s. We're at this peak, but we're also seeing some pushback from the powers that be, in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just as a thing to kind of give us some context, we talk about certain things nowadays, but it just, I don't think there was anything that compared to the pressure on nerds from the normal, from mainstream, the church, and things like that, because here we are having these celebrations and studios understanding we spend money, and figure out how to get that money. But by the same token, it was a hard time. You didn't really, Stranger Things, I think, captures it really well in the, in this most recent season, the ostracization of the, of the group for playing D&D and being the nerds, and no one realizing that they're the reason the world is still the way it is.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's my personal soapbox for the 80s, is because I had to fight to be me,
Hey, I totally agree with you. The 80s was definitely an experience.
Yeah.
For those of us that lived through it, it's something that it's really difficult to put into words.
Yeah.
It was just something that, look, to give you an idea, one of the things that I skipped over in talking about when we came to 1981 was MTV. MTV would have an effect on Hollywood films. MTV, August 1st, 1981. And we are about to celebrate a major anniversary coming up within the next few days. This will be what it'll be. Yeah, I think it'll be Sunday. Yeah, because I think the 11th, 12th, yeah, so it'll be this Sunday. This Sunday will be the 40th anniversary of the Live Aid event.
Yeah.
And it just was. And let's see, so 84, you were a sophomore. I was headed into I'm sorry. Wait. No. Yeah. It'll be the 40th anniversary this year. So you were a sophomore. By August 13th, 1985, I was already starting college. So I was a freshman in college. And I watched. A majority. Yeah, I know. I never said I wasn't. Yeah, you haven't listened to Gary talk about me before. Come on. But it's just that I watched a majority of the live broadcast that MTV provided. A lot of people who didn't have MTV had to wait until Dick Clark Productions' contract with ABC kicked in and did a kind of a much shortened television version of it later on, and then a simulcast of the final number on stage.
Oh God, yeah.
In Philadelphia.
And for those of you who were not alive back then, Live Aid was a concert that was simulcast from
around the world.
Yeah, Wembley Stadium in London and John F. Kennedy Stadium in Philadelphia. It was a benefit for the famine,
African relief,
in Ethiopia especially, and it's what actually got the Western world involved in foreign policy, humanitarian concerns in foreign policy. Up until then, it wasn't even on the radar.
Well, I mean, it was a direct result, an outgrowth of what had been accomplished with the Live Aid song. They know it's Christmas.
It's Christmas, yeah.
And that was just the event of Live Aid was really carrying forward everything that had been started by George Harrison with his concert for Bangladesh in the 1970s. So MTV, and the reason why I started out with all of that was it would become something that would affect the entertainment industry to the point where it started to affect television shows like Miami Vice. Miami Vice is a direct outgrowth of MTV.
Yeah.
There would be no Miami Vice without MTV. And then it would also affect really the films, especially films coming into the 90s. MTV started its own studios and started making its own movies. And the first one being Joe's Apartment. That was the first film they released. And
wasn't MTV, Aeon Flux was on it, the Max, what was it, Liquid Television?
Liquid Television. God, I love that show.
Yeah, no.
That was really an outgrowth of the animation festivals that they used to have all the time. There was an animation festival that had been the real premiere for stuff like Frog Baseball, which eventually led to Beavis and Butthead, and a lot of underground animation that had been around for years. And MTV basically just gave these creatives an outlet for what they were doing. So Liquid Television, Dog Boy, and Winter Steel, and Aeon Flux, and I mean, just
the Max. They were.
Oh wow, And remember when? Oh wow, we're getting into the 90s, so a lot of this stuff we can't really go into until the August. But I gotta say, it's just it's amazing. It's amazing to see what came out of this. And again, this is the 1980s.
Oh yeah. Well, and in '84 specifically, I think it was. I know it was '84 because I was in Calallen at the time. I went over to my friend George Garza's house and watched the debut of Jump.
Yeah.
Which straight up performance video. I think they spent more on beer than they did on the video itself. But it got nominated for for the MTV Music Video Award.
Well, and we have a question here about Sean Connery, and let me at least say this. That wouldn't be until, in America, Highlander did not come out until 1986.
Yeah.
Even though it had already premiered in Britain and in certain other places in 1985.
Mhm.
So, you know, and you are right. I probably should have done Highlander, but you know,
We're not there yet.
yeah, we're not there yet. And while Highlander was released to theaters, it didn't find its real success until it had hit cable and also home video.
Home video. My first home video was Highlander and Lady Hawk. It was my first VCR.
So
yeah.
and again, let me also say that the magazine for a lot of nerds and geeks, I talked about it before. The magazines, the fanzines that have been put out there were really the only way to get a lot of news out there outside of using the so-called real press or certain press adjacent publications like the Star or the Sun.
Dynamite magazine. Dynamite was like Teen Beat or Tiger Beat for nerds, is what it was.
Well, but it only went so far. See, I stopped reading Dynamite.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say by the time I got to junior high.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, you know, Dynamite was a magazine I read in grade school before I got to junior high.
Because it was Scholastic, and that's where our exposure to that stopped.
Yeah. And so, you know, it was just if you really wanted the latest, you had to go with a magazine like Starlog. Starlog to me is the magazine of choice for those who grew up as a nerd or geek in the 80s.
Right.
Okay, that is just it. There were other magazines that did things. There were other magazines that were science related. I know that they had magazines from different people, but different outlets. But like Omni was a big one.
God, I remember Omni. Jeez.
Omni, yeah. But for all the rest of us that weren't willing to try to read through all the science articles,
right?
It's Starlog. Starlog had their news people. Everything they did was right there. And it's the same way and the same reason why people go online, hit shows like ours or others on YouTube or different places that you can go, you know, all over the internet. And Starlog was that.
Yeah.
And it's just Starlog had all of it. And it was just the voice of where you got your latest and greatest news from anything related to what we would be interested in the world of entertainment, whether you're talking film, television, literature, comics, everything. So, Starlog, love it. Wish it was still around.
Yeah.
So, anyway, well, that is our show today. I want to, Das Wolfen, yeah, I know, Omni, right? Omni, that takes me back.
Omni published some stories that just warped my head.
Yes, that was Omni's job.
Yeah.
You know,
Omni, I had to hide like porn. My mom. Omni was fucking nerd porn, is what it was, man.
Yeah, it was. Yes, it was. And every time, look, you go to any convention, big convention, somebody's selling magazine back issues, you can find lots of issues of Omni. There's just some stuff in there that'll just blow your mind, man.
For a minute. Then they're gone.
That's Wolfen. Love you, brother. Again, let me just say, I really, really, really want to just say thank you to. Yeah, you're right. Fangora was also great
I think
magazine.
we covered that earlier on in the 70s is when Fangoria, I think, got its start. Or was that Starlog? Yeah, no, it's Fangoria. Yeah, God, so much that we've lost since then.
Yes.
But by the same token gained, because those niches are filled by different things.
Yes. Let me at least just go ahead and remind a lot of you who have not heard. Heavy Metal is back.
Heavy Metal Magazine? Awesome.
Heavy Metal Magazine is back. Mm-hmm. So if you want to pick up the latest issues, you got to go online, but you can get it. So there you go. Prawn Connection or PORN Connection. Anyway, I want to thank I want to thank 11 Alpha. I want to thank Tom Baker, Das Wolfen, which again, buddy, we need to catch up sometime. Of course, the G, my brother James, the Peter Vinkman fan site. Let's see, and I'd also like to thank. Yeah, okay, Wolfen. Yes, I'm still going. Yes, I'm still going. There's a lot to talk about with the 80s. Okay. Wow. Thank you, Das Wolfen. Anyway, Real Popcorn Geek, thank you very much. And let's see, the lovely Penny, and the incredible Anima, and James Caserta, sup, JC, and yeah, I think that's about it. Oh, and of course, I want to thank the main man, Ben, and the man for whom none of this happens, our good buddy and producer, Martin.
Hey.
Oh, thank you, Zax. Thank you.
All right. We'll see you guys next week.
You got it.
Hasta la vista.
Y'all come back now, you hear?